Patrick takes the snap, drops back, lobs it back right corner. Decker! He's got it! Touchdown! Eric Decker scores! And the Jets have won it in overtime!
This is the Jet Take with Ben Blessington and Kyle Fahey.
Welcome back to another episode of the Jet Take. I'm your host, Ben Blessington, and as always, I'm joined by Kyle Fahey. Kyle, how you doing, man?
I'm doing well, Ben. How about yourself?
I'm good. And by the way, you can always follow us on Twitter at the Jet Take. Plenty of stuff to talk about. Not really, but you know, a few rumors and whatnot. There's always something to talk about in Jets land. Anyways, so the Jets still have not hired an offensive coordinator. This has been 3 weeks, a month, pretty much since they've been looking. The report was that came out earlier this week that Shane Gailey informed Todd Bowles that it would be a 2-year job at the beginning of his tenure, and Todd Bowles knew that Shane Gailey was going to be done before the beginning of the season. And the question that's arisen is, you know, why didn't the Jets have a replacement plan in place? A lot of people thought, including myself, thought it was going to be Kevin Patullo. They fired him with Gailey, and now the Jets are left searching for an offensive coordinator they could look. They interviewed the Saints wide receiver coach, John Morton, and Coach Godsey, the offensive coordinator for the Texans, or the ex-offensive coordinator for the Texans, who has experience. He was at Penn State with Hackenberg, and so if the Jets bring him in, then you're going to look for a Hackenberg future for the Jets. Kyle, some other news to talk about. Obviously, Leonard Williams is in the Pro Bowl this weekend. You can tune in. He's going to be the only Jet there in Florida. Kyle, you're going. Are you excited to watch our Big Cat, number 92, play in Southern Florida this weekend?
Yeah, that would be pretty cool to see.
Yeah, and so and then I guess there's a few other different stories that we're going to talk about. I guess we'll start though with Mike Maccagnan, the general manager for the New York Jets. You know, again, he's apparently reporting again that he is going to take the best player available regardless of the position. He did that 2 years ago, definitely with Leonard Williams. And, I mean, obviously Leonard Williams is a tremendous player. However, the Jets passed on Vic Beasley, who is an outside linebacker, who's a tremendous pass rusher. And if the Jets had taken him, they would have had their pass rushing outside linebacker and then Sheldon and Moe. So, Kyle, my question to you, the first one of the night, is do you really think that best player available is best for the team? In theory, it sounds nice, but I read an article about the New England Patriots and how when they bring in players, they don't choose the best available player. They choose the best player for the New England Patriots. Don't you think the Jets should take more of that route, or do you think they should stick with the best player available route that Maccagnan has done for 2 years now?
Well, I really think that depends on where your team is at. You look at the Patriots, who have had continued success for years and years, and probably the next couple of years, as long as Brady and Belichick are around, they're pretty well set at the primary positions. Jets, on the other hand, not the case. If I'm the Jets, you know, I'm looking to stock load on talent at this point. But, you know, a team like the Patriots, they can go out and sign a couple guys who may not be the greatest, but may be, you know, the cheapest and can do a serviceable job. So I think there's a difference there. If I were the Jets this year, I would definitely go to fill a need. I wouldn't go to pick the best player available, because really when you look at the draft board this year, probably the best player available for us would be Leonard Fournette. And I think that would be a mistake, seeing as we have huge needs at quarterback, corner, linebacker, as you mentioned, Vic Beasley a couple years ago. So, no, I would not go best player available this year.
And again, I mean, obviously it's early in the process. We've talked about it the last 4 or 5 episodes at this point. But where do you want the Jets to target with that 6th pick? Has anything changed for you in terms of who your favorite players are? And I know there's been a little shuffle in your running back rankings as well. And running back is a position that the Jets could target, although Bilal Powell had some good success last year. Matt Forte as well had some early success. Matt Forte is old. He was injured a lot. Bilal Powell, the concern with him is durability as well, and we don't know if he's an every down back. He certainly proved in those last few weeks that he could be, but the question is can he do that over 16 games? So I think the Jets would be smart to cut Matt Forte and bring in another young guy and have him and Bilal Powell. Whether the Jets do that with their 1st pick or their 7th round pick is to be decided. So Kyle, first off, tell us where are you going to target with that 6th pick, and then to talk to us a little bit about your new running back rankings.
Yeah, with the 6th pick, I think for me, it would either be the best quarter, corner, or linebacker, because I really don't know where it's going to fall. You know, the first two picks are teams that desperately need quarterbacks in the Cleveland Browns and San Francisco 49ers. We've seen some rumors about Kirk Cousins to the 49ers if his old offensive coordinator Kyle Shanahan gets the head coaching gig over there, but you just never know how the draft's really going to plan out in that scenario. What I likely see us doing is probably taking a corner, more than likely Tease Tabor. He's definitely the number one corner in my mind. Marlon Humphrey, also another name to throw out there, who's just a freak athlete.
Wait. Do you think you're a little biased because you're a Florida fan with Tease Tabor, or are you actually looking at the film? Do you think he is the best true shutdown corner?
I think he's the best true shutdown corner. A lot of hype around Marlon Humphrey. I mean, he's a physical freak. You really can't go wrong either way. But I think if you're looking at what translate well to the next level, instead of freak athleticism, I would go to a guy kind of like Revis, who's a technician at the line and can basically, just stop you from doing what you usually do. And what I would even say about Tabor is he's got much better speed than Revis was even when he was younger, and I would probably say much more physical. So he's a great player all around. So is Marlon Humphrey. You can't go wrong either way, but definitely corner at number 6 for us. And regarding my running back rankings, Dalvin Cook's still my number 1. Leonard Fournette's still my number 2, and Christian McCaffrey has slid up to number 3 for me. I think a lot of people are starting to overlook him for, height and various other reasons, but he's got a lot to offer at the next level. I'm not saying we should take him, but I'm saying a team will definitely be looking at him in the early second round.
Whoa, wait. What do you mean? He's your third-ranked running back, and he's not? You don't think the Jets should take him?
Third-ranked running back? No, I don't think we should.
So where do you see the Jets targeting the running back position? And based off, I believe you sent me a photo of your whiteboards. It seemed like Christian McCaffrey had the highest score for you out of your little scoring system. So
yeah.
1, where do you think the Jets should take a running back? And 2, if Christian McCaffrey had the highest score for your little Madden system or whatever numerical system you're using, how is he number 1 but number 3 in your heart?
Well, I based this numerically based off of production, turnovers, yards per carry, stuff like that. Obviously, not the greatest way to judge a player, but that's just for me to really look at where they are in a spectrum. Obviously, offenses are different throughout the college, what would I call it? Spectrum, I guess you could say. Florida State, little different than Stanford. I mean, Stanford relied on Christian McCaffrey, so obviously he would have more yards. And that's basically just a tallying system, and he was my number 1 in that way. But I think talent-wise, Dalvin Cook's number 1. And if I were the Jets, I wouldn't go running back early. I mean, this is a very, very deep class running back-wise. You can pick up guys like Jamal Williams from BYU in like the 3rd or 4th round. I mean,
Elijah Hood.
Yeah, also Donnell Humphrey from San Diego State, Dante Foreman from Texas, Alvin Kamara from Tennessee, who's one of the most underrated backs in this draft and basically can do everything. He's just not that fast that you would want to see from like a first-round pick, and I think that's why he'll slide to the 2nd or 3rd round. But if I were the Jets, I would not target a running back in the 1st round. I would definitely go 3rd, 4th, 5th round. And in that case, I would go the best running back available. Interesting.
And then if you're going to go with the best running back available in the later rounds, let's target the 2nd round pick, because this is a pick that the Jets have struggled with really before McCagnon, before Idzik. You can go back probably to Mike Tannenbaum. The last probably decent 2nd round pick the Jets have had, I believe, was David Harris. So that's going back a long ways. Where do you think the Jets should target in the 2nd round? Because they obviously missed on Devin Smith, at least to this point. You never know. And then Christian Hackenberg could be a hit or a miss. I'm sick of people saying, he's a complete miss, because we don't know if he's a bust yet. And certainly all indications are, well, we could have used a QB last year and he didn't really get any time, but you never know. So it seems like the last 2 picks, and that was a questionable pick, a bit of a reach, and the Jets could have gone O-line. Where do you think the Jets should target? Which position group and what type of players do you think the Jets should target in the 2nd round? Because you're saying running back we should save for later, or 1st round you want corner. So is that where you're targeting the offensive line, or are you going somewhere else?
I think that really depends on what our first-round pick is because, that would basically clear up what we really need from this draft. Like I said, I think we'll definitely take a corner in the first round because I think, the quarterbacks that, are considered the best will probably be gone. But, there I would definitely look at offensive line. A guy like Ryan Ramczyk could definitely slide to the second round, who could probably come in and possibly fill our left tackle spot. I would like to see a competition because I think of him more as a right tackle in the NFL, but he's known to be a guy who can be very versatile. So I think the Jets can get the most out of him, as we've done with other offensive linemen. If we don't go an offensive lineman, I'd like to look at the tight end position, a very deep tight end class. You look at guys like O.J. Howard, who's really been making a name for himself in the Senior Bowl this week. Also guys like David Njoku from Miami, who's just a pure athlete. Evan Ingram from Ole Miss, who I consider more of a wide receiver, but is listed as a tight end. And, you can't go wrong really with a guy who can run like a 4.5. I think he's running around. He's 6'6", and he's got pretty solid hands, and he's just a complete player. So I think it's based on what we do in the first round. But I would target some sort of skill position.
Interesting. And yeah, me personally, with that first-round pick, I've said it before that I want a skill position player in the first round, a guy who's going to sell jerseys. I know that sounds pretty superficial, but I mean it. I mean, I'm looking at guys at the running back position. I know I love me some DeShone Kizer. I don't know if the Jets should take him though, because the Jets have taken a quarterback with Bryce Petty and Christian Hackenberg, and I think they need to give Hackenberg some time. However, if they have the same feelings that I do on DeShone Kizer, they should take DeShone Kizer. You could also look at corners, safeties, guys like that, outside linebackers, but we don't need offensive linemen there. We don't need tight ends there. We don't need defensive linemen there. I think we should push those needs back to the second and third round. But so for the first round, I'm pretty much going best player and looking around there and seeing who can help us out in that first round pick. And then the second and third round, I'm going to definitely target the offensive line. I think the Jets have a lot of holes, and they're going to have to rely on guys like Wesley Johnson and Brandon Shell, maybe Ben Ijalana, Brent Qualley, guys like that to fill holes in their offensive line. Carpenter and Winters are really the only two guys who are going to be solidified to start next year. But if they go down, you never know. At center, I think the Jets are probably going to move on from Nick Mangold. Maybe he'll retire and go out as a Jet because I think the Jets are going to probably try to bring in Wesley Johnson, cheaper, younger, get him some reps. And then the tackles, which is going to be key because the Jets, we know Bilal Powell loves to run outside. He dominated going up the middle, but if he can get around the edge, he can be very dangerous. So the Jets need two pretty solid tackles. Brandon Shell flashed. But the left tackle has been a revolving door, and that is the most important position for quarterback pressures. If the Jets quarterbacks are constantly under pressure, no matter who it is, whether it's Tom Brady or Bryce Petty, they're not going to play as well. So I think in that second round, they should definitely target offensive linemen, specifically offensive tackles. We have to go more in depth on our board to figure out who's the best fit for this team. So I'll leave it vague there. And then with that third round pick, then maybe I'm looking at just flat out best player available. But with the first pick, I'm going best player for the New York Jets. That is a skill position. So maybe we pick a running back. I know it's not smart to build around a running back. That second round, you're going with the offensive line. And that third, then you can just go best player available. Because once you go from round 3 to round 7, I think then the best player available mantra is at its best there. I think of the first 2, that's when you should probably try to target your needs. But, not everybody shares those views. Kyle, what's your take on that, and when you should target? I know we just talked about your views on best player available versus best player for the team, but there is a point in the draft where the Jets should probably discard need and just go for best players. Do you agree with that statement?
I would agree with that. I think most GMs would agree with that. I think we've seen it in recent draft history. I mean, you look at guys like Sharon Peake, who were drafted in the later rounds for the Jets, wasn't really a need, but it's turned out to be a pretty good find on special teams, and, we hope to develop into an offensive player now. So I think really what you need to do in the early rounds, especially for where the Jets are right now, where they're considered being rebuilding at some sort of level, You find the player that's best fitted for you, that's going to come in, make an impact, and you're pretty confident on. You do that in the first and second round. And you really look at this draft. It's so deep. You can't go wrong in the first and second round. Honestly, there's just so much.
Whoa. We're the Jets. We can find a way to mess this up.
That's fair. This is fair. I probably should have gave a warning. Most teams should not mess up here. This draft is so deep. You just, really an exception to the quarterback position. There's almost a definite elite player at the next level. So, but besides that, I think besides the first and second round, and possibly even the third round, depending on how desperate you are as a team, I think you should go best player available. Because ultimately that's how you stockpile talent. And you look at the Patriots, and I know they didn't draft Martellus Bennett, but when Rob Gronkowski goes out, Martellus Bennett's up next, and he's a Pro Bowl caliber player when he's a starter. Now, obviously, he isn't a starter, so he doesn't get the Pro Bowl stats, but the next man up is great to have. It's a great mantra to have. But when your next man up isn't very talented and he's a backup for a reason instead of a guy who's young and talented and that's why he's the backup because he doesn't have the experience, I'd rather have that.
Yeah, and you mentioned earlier, just to touch on it, that you prefer Dalvin Cook over Leonard Fournette, and this is going to be a debate, similar to the A.J. Green versus Julio Jones takes back in 2011, 2012, RG3 versus Andrew Luck. There seems to always be, a one position that has two very talented players, and people side with who they think is better. You stated you're a Dalvin Cook fan, and why do you think he's better than Leonard Fournette? First off, I would just like to say Leonard Fournette's an amazing player, and I think if he can stay healthy at the next level, he will probably end up being a Pro Bowler a couple times in his career. But I feel the same about Dalvin Cook at almost every level of Leonard Fournette, except he doesn't have an injury history. I feel he's more mature, and I also feel that his game going to the next level, when I'm talking about a running back, you can't just be run up the middle guy who has, really nice speed anymore. You got to be able to catch the ball. You got to be able to block. And then you got to be able to do what running backs of the old days used to do. And I think that's why Ezekiel Elliott was so high on a lot of people's boards last year, and rightfully so. You saw what he did this year. Fantastic blocker, great pass catcher, and could do it in the running game as well. And I see very similar things from Dalvin Cook. And, Leonard Fournette, pass catching, it's okay. It's not ideal. Pass blocking has actually been fairly bad from him, whether that be from the ankle injury or other, problems just technique-wise. I just don't really see that from him. But, both are very talented, but I think Dalvin Cook's game translates well to the NFL compared to Leonard Fournette's. Yeah, and before we get to our callers, I actually disagree with you. I am on the Leonard Fournette bandwagon, at least at this point. In the episode before the draft, I think we'll make our final decisions on who we like and who we don't like. But I like Dalvin Cook. That's not. I think he will be successful in the NFL. But I think Leonard Fournette has that next level talent. He has that given ability. You're going up against SEC defenses versus ACC defenses, which is a huge difference stat wise. I thought the LSU offensive line was not as good. You can look at some stats, and they average, how many rushing yards did each team get, and then they average it out. So LSU might grade a little higher, but that is because Leonard Fournette, if you look at the holes he was given, and yes, there were times where he was given just massive holes to run through, but it wasn't like that most of the time. He's having to throw guys over his back and juke and spin. I'm telling you, I think if Leonard Fournette, as you said, staying healthy is going to be key. However, he did play through all of these injuries. It didn't keep him off the field very often until this past year. I think he missed 2 or 3 games towards the end. But he has video game-like numbers where he's putting up 250 yards plus. I think he's definitely the most talented player in the draft, or at least has the potential to be the best player in this draft. If he comes to the Jets, I actually think that could be a good situation for him, despite the offensive line woes. He could pair up with Bilal Powell. That should keep him healthy. And then if he displays that he is the next Ezekiel Elliott, then Bilal might take a little bit of a backseat and do more of the receiving back, third down back type stuff. But I think if Leonard Fournette comes to the New York Jets, it could be a good situation for him. So let's go ahead and move on to the callers. And we'll talk about the draft and all that is happening with the New York Jets. But it's not much. In mid-January, it gets pretty dry. We're going to bring on Kyle Smith from AFC East Bros podcast. a tremendous podcast host himself, and a New York Jets fan. So, Kyle, how you doing, man?
Pretty good, gentlemen. How you guys doing?
We're doing pretty good. I mean, it's been a slow news week the past few weeks. I mean, you run an AFC East podcast, so you got the Patriots still in the playoffs. The Dolphins made it. The Bills fired Rex Ryan and stuff. But for the Jets, it's been pretty quiet. They still have not hired an offensive coordinator. Kyle, let's talk about that. Who do you think the Jets should target for this offensive coordinator? We've been asking this question for the past 3 weeks. It's changed every time we've asked it because, I mean, guys are getting taken off the market, and it seems like with every week we assume, okay, we'll probably have an offensive coordinator by then, but we still haven't. The Jets, however, do have 2 new interviewees, interviewed the Saints wide receiver coach and the ex-Texans offensive coordinator. So anyways, what are your thoughts on this whole offensive coordinator situation? Who do you think the Jets should target and why?
Geez, guys, let me just start off by saying I'm currently grocery shopping right now, so I hope it's not too loud for you guys. If it is, by all means, just hang up on me. But anyway, to answer your question, Ben, I don't have a good answer, and I think that it's good for us to sometimes be humble sometimes to say that we really know a lot about these guys in good detail, and that's the guy that we should go with. Sometimes it's a little difficult. I don't know too much about these guys. It sounds nice on the surface, like, hey, listen, Saints wide receiver coach, he helped develop Michael Thomas. Michael Thomas, young, raw rookie. Sometimes it's difficult to rookies have a great season like that. Cooks developed, Snead developed. Yeah, that sounds nice. That sounds much more intriguing than Godsey. Well, when you look at our own in-house guy, Carl Durrell, I think when you look at the model of most good teams, they like to promote within. You guys had mentioned the New England Patriots earlier. Very, very rarely do they hire outside guys. In fact, their single biggest coaching turnaround this year came on their offensive line with their offensive line coach, Dante Scarnecchia. But he's been with the Patriots since before Belichick's gotten there. Belichick actually coaxed him out of retirement to come and coach the offensive line again. He was retired for 2 years. Belichick was able to get him out. But Belichick goes with guys that he's comfortable and familiar with. So that, to me, gives me a little bit of belief in Carl Durrell. And when you saw what he did with some of these young guys, is a little bit promising. But, again, to say that I know that he's going to be good or anything like that is really a stretch. But I really want no part of Godsey, to be honest. I mean, he had his play calling duties revoked. A lot of that, I think, is on Brock Osweiler's ineptitude. But still, I mean, it's a really tough question for me to answer, guys.
Yeah, I happen to agree with you there. I think the one thing that Godsey brings is the experience with Christian Hackenberg. If they're going to try to get somebody who can maximize Christian Hackenberg's talent, he might be that guy. I definitely wouldn't hire I'm spacing on his name right now. The Saints wide receivers coach over Carl Durrell. Thank you, Kyle. Over Carl Durrell because I think I agree with you that the Jets should hire in-house if they're going to go with the wide receiver coach. I thought Coach Durrell did a great job, and that kind of leads me to my next point. We talked about the young wide receivers. I know Robbie Anderson was a guy who emerged, and let's be honest, if Fitzpatrick hit some of these guys, their stat lines might be even better. I mean, they were getting open constantly. But I want to talk about Quincy Enunwa. A lot of people are saying he's the next Brandon Marshall. We should cut Brandon Marshall and have Quincy fill that role. What's your thoughts on this? Because I happen to think he's more similar to Eric Decker. Not that I would get rid of Eric Decker. I still might be on the board of getting rid of Brandon Marshall, but I do believe that Quincy Nunn was more similar to Eric Decker. Let's be honest here. Quincy Nunn made some terrific plays throughout the season, but he was not, just like a Brandon Marshall where he was consistently open. He would get, 2, 3, maybe 4 catches a game, and he might have 100 yards and a touchdown. But let's be honest, I don't think he was getting open as consistently as Marshall or even Decker to that point. However, I do think he'll probably dominate more in the slot. So what's your take? Do you think Quincy Nunn was more of a Brandon Marshall carbon copy or more of an Eric Decker?
To be honest, Ben, I really don't think he's a great comp for either player. I mean, when you think of Decker, you think of smooth route running. You think of a guy that dominates in the slot but can play on the outside. He's not going to really high point a football for you. He's not phenomenal after the catch. He's okay after the catch. what makes Quincy good is what Quincy does when he's got the ball in his hands. Now, in ways that Quincy is similar to Brandon Marshall is they're both obviously excellent run blockers. Brandon Marshall is definitely better at high-pointing the football than Quincy. I know Quincy had the end zone catch against Malcolm Butler, but that's not what he does with consistency. And Quincy, at this point of his career, although he's come leaps and bounds from where he was when the Jets drafted him, he's still a pretty raw route runner. So to me, that says that he's not that much like Decker. And Brandon Marshall, I mean, like I feel like Quincy's not so similar to him either because Quincy has a lot more downfield speed. Brandon Marshall, at this point in his career, I don't even know if he's going to run a 4.7. He's going to run somewhere in the 4.6s for sure. But Quincy, he's got, mid 4.4 speed. There's a significant difference between those two guys. So I'm trying to think of, one thing Joe Caparosa said, we're trying to compare Quincy Enunwa to make other comparisons. He was saying that Jordan Reed, maybe Jordan Reed Light, was a good comparison for Quincy Enunwa. And honestly, that might be more fair than trying to compare him to one of these other two receivers.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with you there, and I actually like the Jordan Reed, comparison there. Both very athletic guys who have been known to play a little wide receiver and tight end and kind of be a complete package. Now, obviously, Jordan Reed a lot more developed than Quincy Enunwa at this point, respectively, but still. Kyle, we've asked this question a lot, and, it kind of leads into the draft talk, and I know you've said previously that you're not really extremely up to date on all these guys, but say, we did release a guy like Brandon Marshall or Eric Decker, or possibly even both. Is there any way at number 6, if a guy like Mike Williams or Corey Davis is sitting there, you pull the trigger?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I like I said, I haven't watched one single game on either one of those guys. I hear great things. I'm hearing some people compare him to A.J. Green, Mike Williams, that is. Corey Davis, I heard a much faster, more athletic Jordan Matthews, but still has the savvy technician. That's really intriguing. People say Corey Davis, he's not going to really dominate Julio Jones type of style on any given week, but he's that guy who's going to constantly run crisp routes and create separation and just be extremely reliable week in, week out. That's intriguing. No way, shape, or form. I mean, we looked at the Jets coming in to this offseason, and we said, man, that's the best wide receiver tandem in the NFL. Not only that, but they have this young emerging star in Quincy Enunwa. They still have some young talent there. Devin Smith, 2nd overall pick, 37th overall. Not 2nd overall pick, 37th overall, 2nd-round pick. We were really giddy about that. But when you look at it this year, complete 180. We saw Marshall just completely fall off the face of the earth. And then we saw Eric Decker. Not only does he have one big-time injury, but he's got 2 big-time injuries, and that's in a career of injuries. Decker is, he's missed games several times throughout the career, and he's close to 30 years old now, probably 30 years old by the start of the season. So when you look at all of that, yes, currently at the face of it right now, if you keep both those receivers and you're really giddy about what Quincy Enunwa can be, the reality is we can give Quincy a contract, but we don't ever know that he's going to develop into being as good as either Decker or Marshall. He might only get slightly better than what he currently is because at this point, he's still a very raw route runner, and you cannot be an elite receiver in this league until you refine those techniques. And even though he's improved his hands dramatically as well, he's still inconsistent in catching the football. So we don't even know exactly where he will be with the trajectory of his career. So your current talent at wide receiver should not stop you. If one of those two guys is the best guy on the board at 6, you should take them, in my opinion, if they're leaps and bounds above the best player. Can I have a little caveat to that, though? I would say that if the Jets draft Jonathan Allen, I'd probably be pretty pissed. Let's say he's hypothetically the best player available, and I guess I could see him sliding. You got a couple of quarterback-needy teams ahead. Quarterbacks always get overdrafted. Someone said that there's a shoulder injury concern with Jonathan Allen. What if he slides to 6? People are saying he's the top 2 or 3 overall player in this draft. Could you imagine if we drafted another defensive lineman, the kind of, he's built for 3-4. He's not a true edge rusher. He's close to 300 pounds. We don't need those types of guys. We're littered with those types of guys, and I get it. We're probably going to move on from Sheldon. Mo disappointed drastically. You could get out of the Mo deal in another year, but that would kind of tick me off. And I'm glad that, Ben, when you were talking before, you had some caveats. You were saying, like, best player available, but you were saying if it's a skill position player. So it's not necessarily always the best player available. And I kind of agree with you, Ben. You should generally draft best player available, I would say, especially in the earlier rounds, but you need to have some type of nuance. You can't be extremely rigid. So we say, let's just go with the best player available. Because if you have, let's say, Jonathan Allen is your number one guy on your board when you select, but you have another guy that has a slightly lower grade, but he's at a position that you need a lot more, it makes sense that you would take the other guy. So you can't always be so rigid to stick to best player available. But that doesn't mean that you reach. If it's Jonathan Allen, he leaps above and bounds above the other players, then I guess you'd have to take him if you couldn't trade back.
Yeah. Sorry, Kyle. You go ahead.
Yeah, I think that's a fair analysis. And what I will say about Jonathan Allen, since we talked about him, he's a phenomenal player. But yeah, you're right. He has a microfracture, I think, in his shoulder. It's kind of been bugging him all year, but he's played through it. He'll probably need surgery at some point. I think he's going to try and get through the combine or at least his pro day with it, though. So if his numbers aren't as great as people thought, that would probably be a factor in why. But if he's sitting there, I don't think the Jets should take him just because of the pure depth at the position. But he's arguably a top 3 player in this draft. Going back to the wide receivers, I've watched a lot of Clemson games because, obviously scouting Deshaun Watson. Big fan of Ben Boulware. I think he's fairly underrated. I don't like his speed, though. Mike Williams, my comparison would either be Des Bryant or A.J. Green. Like if we're talking skill set and size, and then for Corey Davis,
two pretty different styles, to be honest.
Well, it's weird. You look at AJ Green, and he's just it's like watching ballet on the football field. So graceful in what he does, and I see that a lot of times with Mike Williams. But when you really need to, and you need to get physical, like Dez can do from time to time, you go up there and you see some really nice catches from him. Except in Lambeau. I can also see that from Mike Williams, especially from guys going against guys like Marlon Humphrey in the championship game, who are widely considered as the number 1 or number 2 or number 3 corner in this draft. I've seen him produce against the best year in and year out. And the ACC is no joke. They're a fairly good conference, so I don't have any questions about talent. Now, Corey Davis, on the other hand, they play in the MAC, and he was really the driving force of their success this year. P.J. Fleck, obviously, he's left, and, the quarterback, and now Corey Davis is leaving. But he's also a physical specimen. I don't have a comparison for him yet, but I feel like you can't go wrong either way. But if I had a choice, it'd probably be Mike Williams.
Ben, do you want to jump in?
Yeah, no, I thought Kyle was going to follow up with this. Actually, I have a little new topic that I wanted to talk about because the people on Twitter are talking about it. Kyle Smith, because of your doubts on Quincy Enunwa, would that prevent you from cutting Brandon Marshall and or Eric Decker? So if you have to cut one of them, or are you cutting one of them first off? If you are, who is it? Or are you going to keep both? Or are you cutting both? That's a lot of options there. But what are you going to do about the Jets' veteran wide receivers?
I don't understand why we have to cut one or both of them. You mean to tell me that there's not some team out there, some team that thinks that they have Super Bowl hopes and aspirations,
or
that wouldn't want to get one of these guys for a later round draft pick? You mean to tell me there's not one team out there that would throw a 6th for Decker or throw a 6th or 7th for Marshall? Marshall, I can maybe see that. Listen, he's been traded 3 times in his career. I think that's a record. So maybe a team, we're hearing concerns in the locker and feuds with other teammates. Maybe a team wouldn't trade for him. But for Decker, I mean, we're talking these contracts are not big. You're not talking about getting a guy with a $14 million cap hit, Tony Romo-esque. So I don't see why we cannot fetch a late-round draft pick for them. There's no way that I would cut both of them. I mean, granted, the Jets shouldn't be going out in free agency and spending up the wazoo, even though they don't have the cap to do that, because they need to have a long-term approach. But that doesn't necessarily mean that you cut everything that you currently have. You try to go into every season winning. You try to. you best believe Bowles is going to come into this season trying to win. His job's on the line. So
Absolutely.
why do you go and cut everyone and just give yourself absolutely no chance to compete? No, you need to keep at least one of them for sure.
Yep. Yeah, I absolutely agree. And, you know, Kyle, I'm on board with you right here. You know, I don't want to cut either of them. You know.
Yeah, but Kyle, yours are for different reasons. So, I'll let you finish, and then I'll jump in. But you're not on the same side because he's saying you could trade him. Kyle, you're saying you want to keep it and go forward for a playoff push or something. You know, like it wouldn't. Kyle Smith. Before we get to phase take, don't you think it'd be more beneficial for the Jets to get the young guys reps? Because if you're bringing back Brandon Marshall and Eric Decker, first of all, it's highly unlikely that the Jets are going to be good next year. You never know. You never know. However, the young wide receivers proved not only are they good, so maybe the drop-off isn't as much as we think, but if you and in Week 17, Peak, Anunwa, and Robbie Anderson, that looks like a pretty solid trio. If you keep Marshall and Decker, now Sharon Peak is your 5th string wide receiver. Robbie Anderson is your 4th string wide receiver. These guys aren't getting the number of reps that they could be getting. So, but if the Jets do cut, let's say Brandon Marshall or Eric Decker, whichever one, those guys are now getting reps. And then when the Jets are ready to make a playoff push, let's say 2018, 2019 or whatever, then those guys are ready. They've had their reps. They're starters in this league, and then they're going to be playing at the peak of their game. Don't you think that is maybe the better strategy? Because it seems like the Jets are keeping guys a year too late. I'm fine with trading the guy. I should have worded it as, you know, get rid of through cutting or trading. But don't you think that it could be beneficial for the Jets to just play their young guys, see who's really the real deal, get them reps, etc.?
I guess my answer to that question would be, if you can't find a trade partner, you can't trade either one of these guys, then you cut one. Because you got to save some type of cap savings. You have to make some type of free agency moves. It's just that, and you have to have, obviously, cap space to sign your draft picks. But I would not want to cut both of them and just completely go with this approach of, let's play these young guys. Because I got to be honest with you guys, I was one of the first people that fell in love with Robbie Anderson. I was hyping him up all the way. Right before the preseason game, you know, like I was saying, like, this guy, he's legit. I went to the practices. I saw him dominate at a couple practices. I like Robbie Anderson a lot. But, and I know Sharon Peak, you know, people were saying Connor Rogers maybe had him in his top 40 players in the draft. I really didn't see much from Peak, guys. I really got to be honest. I did not see much. He did slide. He has injury concern histories. Jalen Marshall, I'm not going to continue to rag on the kid, man. You guys know my stance with him. I know he caught a couple late season touchdowns. I'm not impressed at all, especially as a punt returner, but as a receiver too. He's just small. He doesn't have reliable hands. He's not athletic. I'm not sold on these guys. I mean, Ben, you just said that a pretty good trio between Anunwa, Anderson, and Peak, I believe is what you said. Is that a good trio, though? I mean, Robbie Anderson, we like Robbie Anderson for what he does. At this point of his career, Robbie Anderson, he's pretty much just he's kind of like a Kenny Stills type of player. Yes, he's going to run 9 routes all day and post routes, and he's going to clear out the underneath stuff so that you can get players like Marshall with an out route, or you can get a guy into the flat, or you can run a guy with a drag route. And because those corners have to devote their attention, and you're going to have a safety that's also going to be shaded playing downfield because they're scared of Robbie Anderson's speed. Yes, he'll do that, but he's not a receiver that's going to win from all areas of the field. He's just not. He just doesn't do that.
But Kyle, the key point you said there was at this point in his career, obviously he hasn't evolved past running the 9 route because he was a rookie last year. And I fear that if the Jets keep Brandon Marshall and Eric Decker and they play Robbie Anderson as their 4th, it's going to stunt his growth. Because, yeah, you're right. That is all he will be in 3-4 years. The time is now for the Jets to develop Robbie Anderson and Quincy Nunwa and Sharon Peak. I did find some stuff I liked from Sharon Peak. There was some other stuff where I didn't love, but I thought he had some nice catches. But specifically Robbie Anderson, you start him or you play him on the outside, and he's actually getting reps. He might learn to run a slant route a little better than he has. Go over the middle, some drag routes, etc. But if you keep Brandon Marshall and Eric Decker, that's all he's going to be is that guy who can run the streak.
All right,
I gotta ask you that. Well, Fahey, do you mind if I just make one quick point about that?
Go ahead, because we're in the same boat here, Kyle.
Ben, when you look at Robbie Anderson, and again, I love the kid. I love his grit. I love what he's about. But I don't, and you're talking about him developing, and he can be better. There's no doubt he can refine his game and be better at what he does. But when you look at how skinny this guy is, he's 190 pounds soaked in wet. This guy is a twig. I saw him in person. Look at him. He, in my opinion, is never going to be a guy that's going to win
over the
running all different routes on the route tree. He just doesn't have the physicality to do that. So when you talk about him developing, yes, he can refine his game and get better at what he's designed to do. But he's never going to be that complete receiver. I really, really doubt that. So what are your guys' thoughts on that? Fahey, why don't you jump in first?
Yeah, this is why I really don't want to get rid of either of them. And Ben, I totally understand your
that was not your point last week, but anyways, continue.
What was my point last week? That I didn't want to get rid of them. And
no,
I literally
thought the Jets could make a playoff push with Brandon Marshall and Eric Decker and stuff.
Yeah, and I don't think that Robbie Anderson will ever really be a number one. I'm never saying that. I'm just saying that the Jets most likely aren't going anywhere next year. We know that. And they could. However, I'd rather watch these young guys play. Let's learn if Robbie Anderson can do anything other than the 9 route. Let's learn how good Quincy Enunwa can be. Let's learn about Sharon Peak. Let's see where these guys fit. Let's get them reps. Maybe they can be better in 2 or 3. You know what I'm saying? Like it just at this point in the year for this Jets team, playing 2 30-year-old wide receivers isn't going to accomplish much. That's just my take. It's whatever. Kyle, sorry, I cut you off in the middle of what you were saying. Yeah. Go ahead. Yeah, the key term there was, progression from Robbie Anderson. I think that's kind of a, wide brush we're painting with. You look at a guy like Quincy Enunwa, who has the size and the speed, and he can be physical, he can go over the middle. We don't see that from a guy like Robbie Anderson. Like Kyle said, he's never going to be that physical guy who's going to beat you.
But he doesn't have to be.
Well, he's not going to be a number 1 or number 2 receiver. Then he's always going to be a 3 or 4 if he can only do one thing well. He's not going to go across the middle. He could beat you with the speed on the out route. And I guess you could say he could get better there if that's the point you're trying to make. But I'm not going to trust him to be my number 1 guy. And I don't trust out Quincy Enunwa either. I see him as a number 2 type of guy. I don't see him as a number 1. Sharon Peak, it's still out on him. I think he has the ability to be kind of like a Brandon Marshall. I definitely see that. But right now he's been kind of a special teams player, so I wouldn't oppose him seeing more reps. But guys like Jalen Marshall, they probably won't even make the team this year. So I'm just saying.
Whoa. Jalen Marshall most likely will make the team, barring the Jets getting the other young.
He won't make it for punt returners. I'll tell you that.
Yes. However, Jalen Marshall did have some promise. I mean, you could make the argument he had a better season than Sharon Peak. Let's be honest here. Kyle, really quickly though, we had the same debate last week, and we're gonna have to move on pretty soon to the next caller. But I want to get this out there before we continue. Specifically, you, Fahey, and then Kyle Smith, you can chime in. Kyle, your whole point is that he can't do everything, but you do realize that, when you look at certain players, let's look at just Kyle. Give me any great football player that's still in the league today.
Aaron Rodgers.
Okay, Aaron Rodgers. He has his strengths, which he does a lot of good, and you probably give me the hardest player to do this with.
Yep.
And he has his weaknesses, stuff he can't do. Every player has their strengths and weaknesses. Robbie Anderson, yeah, he's really good at running the 9 route. He's really good at running different types of wide receiver screens, whatever. And he might not develop into that guy who can run an in route 10 yards and get the first down and take the big hit. But I'm not saying that's what he needs to be. To be a number 2 receiver, you can be who you are as long as you're dominating. He can run drags, he can run slants, he can run deeps. I'm not saying he can do all that right now. Look at Deshaun Jackson. I guess is that who we're I'll look at for right now.
Deshaun Jackson's the number 3 in Washington.
That was at this point in his career, back when he was in Philadelphia. I'm just saying that Robbie Anderson, I think it's a little bit unfair to him to say, well, that's all he can do. It's like, well, yeah, and he does it very well, and he might develop other skills. I'm not saying that he's going to turn into Calvin Johnson or Brandon Marshall or Eric Decker. He's Robbie Anderson. He has stuff he does well, and I think he can be a very solid guy on the outside. And maybe he won't be, but what are the Jets going to learn by playing 2 30-year-old wide receivers? I don't know. Kyle, before we let you go, man, give out your show information. You and Gary Smith, who almost banned Kyle from your guys' show, run a terrific AFC East podcast. And go ahead and give out all your information.
Damn, I wanted to say one. Actually, I wanted to call to make a case for Malik Hooker, but I guess.
Oh, no, whoa,
No.
hold on.
No.
You know what?
I'm going to be professional about this. Kyle, make
Kyle,
your point.
Yeah, we'll give Kyle Smith the floor for 2-3 minutes or whatever, and Kyle Fahey just be quiet and we can discuss.
Yeah.
I'll try to make it super, super quick just because I know that you guys have probably a ton of callers that you want to get on. All right. Admittedly, I have not watched a lot yet, but based on everything that I'm hearing and based on what I know from watching other great safeties in the league and how they impact the game, if he is what people are hyping him up to be and the Jets have him to select there, and let's just say that they don't have a quarterback there that they like to pick at 6, that is the guy they should take. And here's why. I'll ask you guys really quickly, rapid-fire answers.
Okay.
How many teams in the league, Ben and Kyle, have an elite free safety that can play single high, cover 1, cover 3, and you can trust him to get to either side of the field in a heartbeat and pick off a ball? How many teams have that type of free safety?
2 or 3.
Yeah, around 3, 4 guys I can think of.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say 2, maybe 3. Earl Thomas is obviously the golden child. Devin McCourty. I mean, just to give you some perspective on McCourty and how valuable he is to that Patriots team, you all know Bill Belichick doesn't overpay for his players at all. Not one penny. He underpays his players time in, time out. Well, Devin McCourty 2 seasons ago hit free agency. He was about to sign, I think, with Philly. Belichick got on the phone and persuaded him, said, listen, we'll give you what you want. Come back to us. And they overpaid. They were the highest bidders for McCourty. Belichick realized that he was that valuable to his defense. And maybe Eric Weddle's the other one, if you want to say that. I know he's much older now.
Yeah.
But
You
they
also throw in
changed
Eric
the dynamic
Berry,
of the
maybe?
game.
Yeah,
Eric Berry's getting the Jamal Adams comp. Eric Berry, he plays a lot closer to the line of scrimmage. You don't see Eric Berry backed up too far. He can do that, and that's what makes Berry versatile. He can also play slot corner from time to time. Eric Berry's a very versatile player, but he's not that free-ranging type of safety ball hawker like Earl Thomas. And when you just look at how valuable those players are, take McCourty, for example. The Patriots, you want to undersell their defense as much as you want, they're the top-scoring defense in the league. They were very good 2 years ago when they won a Super Bowl. They were good last year as well. McCourty's a huge piece on that defense. Earl Thomas, look how big the Seahawks' defensive performances dropped when he went down with a season-ending injury this year. You're talking all-time great defense back in 2013, as some would say. It's because of Earl Thomas. You bring that because you don't have to have 2 safeties deep. You're able to stack the box with another guy. It gives you so much more of an ability to stop the run and to stop the short routes, which the NFL is predicated on short routes nowadays. So he's extremely, extremely valuable to a defense. You take a player like Calvin Pryor, you don't ever have to see Calvin Pryor lining up deep again. You keep Calvin Pryor close to the line of scrimmage, and that's where he succeeds. And y'all know I'm no Calvin Pryor fan, but you will keep him close to the line of scrimmage in the box, and he will be a much better player. But you can't do that if you don't have a free safety that has the type of range that Hooker has. And I'll say one thing that really popped off to me. Daniel Jeremiah said Malik Hooker, when he was on the scout team at Ohio State before he really started starting, he picked off one season 40 passes in practice. And that's going against wide receiver talent, NFL talent, Jalen Marshall, Michael Thomas, these types of guys. Those are the types of guys he's going against. He's picking off 40 balls in practice in one season on the scout team. So anyway, food for thought there, guys. But I'll sign off with that.
Quickly, I just want to talk about it. You know, Malik Hooker, I think he's a very good prospect. He's my number 2 safety overall behind Jamal Adams. The biggest flaw with him, which I think will ultimately drop him in this draft to probably the late 20s of the first round, his tackling. His tackling is poor. I'm going to be honest. And I don't know why. You know, usually a guy like Ohio State, he's usually a complete player. Everything besides tackling is phenomenal from Malik Hooker. Some people have called him Deron Lee 2.0, except much more athletic. And, you know, you look at Deron Lee at the size he is, he's fairly athletic.
No way.
Malik Hooker is an extremely athletic guy. Like you said, he's a ball hawk. I believe that he's picked off 40 passes. I've seen him pick off countless times. But I've also seen him miss reads multiple times trying to just decipher where the ball's going. I think he needs to figure that out. And then also just in free range, like you said, when he sits back there, they said they trust him. I don't trust him. I've seen him miss multiple tackles against guys who are going to be shifty. And that you may not get that every game when you're playing for Ohio State, but you're going to get that every game from the NFL. So that's my biggest flaw of him. Besides that, I think he's a phenomenal safety, and I don't think we should take him at 6, but if the Jets fell like into the 20s or maybe like 18, something around that, I wouldn't be against taking him, because you're right. I think he complements Calvin Pryor fairly well, and we can clear a lot of cap space by cutting Marcus Gilchrist. So, I think you make some fair points there. Just a couple flaws with Malik Hooker, but overall good prospect.
All right. Well, Kyle, really quickly give out your show's information on Twitter so our listeners can follow you.
I've already took up too much of your guys' time, so I'm AFC East Bros. Look for me, iTunes, Stitcher, and Twitter. All that stuff. Bye, guys. Take care.
All right, sweet. Thank you for calling in, man.
Thanks for calling in.
All right, that was Kyle from AFC East Bros. Some good stuff on Malik Hooker there. We're going to keep the conversation rolling really quickly here. Kyle, before we get to our next callers, let's talk a little bit more about this Malik Hooker situation. Do you think the Jets, you mentioned corner as the position they should target in the first round of the draft. Do you think the Jets should look safety instead?
No way. Unless it's like Jamal Adams sitting there, which I don't think it will, because
Wait, but we've clarified that Jamal Adams is another strong safety, more similar to Calvin Pryor. The Jets need a free safety, so if they're going to pick a safety, I'm definitely taking Malik Hooker.
I just consider Jamal Adams as one of those really once in an opportunity type of guys. So even with Calvin Pryor, wouldn't be against, possibly shipping off Calvin Pryor, picking up a 4th or 5th round pick from him. Because honestly, we haven't seen amazing things from him, and I don't know where he's going to go from there. Obviously, he did benefit for some good coverage. It was, as we saw in his second year. So maybe that would fix a lot of things that went wrong for him. But, if we get Malik Hooker, I'm not going to throw a fit. He comes from pedigree at Ohio State, only a 1-year starter, which does scare me a little bit. And then obviously, just the tackling issue. But, I feel like if there's some good coaching, those tackling dummies will hopefully get a beating from Malik Hooker throughout all the training camp and rookie mini camp and, just even in the offseason. He could definitely improve on it. But, overall, he's a good prospect.
All right, well, let's get to our next caller of the night, and this is Alex. Let's unmute him there. Alex, how's it going, man?
Hey, fellas, how you doing? Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, we're good. Thanks for coming on. As we said to Kyle Smith, it's a pretty slow news week, and it has been for the past few weeks. The Jets yet to hire an offensive coordinator. Alex, when do you think this is going to happen? And just honestly, because 2 weeks ago I would have said it would have happened by in a week, and then last week I said it would happen by tonight, and then it didn't happen. And I'll probably say it'll happen by next week. But when do you see this going down?
Hopefully soon. I know that we had a couple interviews this week, so maybe we'll get some news before the week's end. Otherwise, it may take a little while. They're doing their diligence, and they've interviewed a few people, and I'm sure they have a couple other guys that more than likely will have a sit down with before free agency starts.
Yeah, and Alex, despite the Texans' offensive woes, which can maybe mostly be attributed to Brock Osweiler, would you be interested in Godsey coming to be the Jets' offensive coordinator, given his experience with Christian Hackenberg?
Yeah, I did hear about their a little bit of their connection. So if they were to bring him in, that would make sense. Everyone keeps saying that the Jets are not appealing, so what coach would want to come in here and take this job? Well, if you look at a few things, we do have some young prospects. We have a good young group, wide receiver group, and we did run the football pretty well last year. So there are some things that this team can do. And, Jets can finally find a tight end and get a quarterback, that can be honest and, obviously not turn the ball over too much. I think this Jets offense could actually be pretty good. And, part of that plan for me, going back to what you guys were discussing before, would probably be keeping Marshall and Decker in the offense. Because I don't know what offensive coordinator wouldn't want a chance to work with those two guys again.
Well, let's talk about that in just a second. I guess we'll go back to the Marshall and Decker combo. But yeah, really quickly, the thing that probably intrigues me most is that Todd Bowles said in a report that he already knows who he's going with, or he has a pretty good. He said, and this is actual quote, that he has a pretty good idea who he's going with, and that was an article from about a week ago. So I wonder if it's Matt Nagy, the co-offensive coordinator for the Chiefs. Maybe they've been in talks. Or if it's one of the guys they've interviewed with Godsey or whatnot. But it sounds like it isn't the Jets just being incompetent. And who knows? Maybe he was just saying this to cover his ass. But this might be more of an example of the Jets, hammering out whatever deals or doing the due diligence. Or maybe the guy they have is still in the hunt or still either part of the Atlanta Falcons or the New England Patriots. You never know. But yeah, let's talk about this Marshall Decker, which has probably been the biggest topic of the offseason besides the offensive coordinator spot. Well, first of all, I mean, your main point is that what offensive coordinator would have wanted a chance to work with excuse me.
Marshall and Decker?
Yeah. Sorry, I got like 3 tweets at once. Yes. I mean, your main point was, who wouldn't want to work with Marshall or Decker? And it's like, I see that, and I get, the Jets are obviously not going to make any, personnel moves with Marshall or Decker before they bring in their offensive coordinator. But again, it's about developing for the future. I mean, it seems like New York fans in general, don't have the patience for this, and it's the reason why no New York teams right now are pretty much good. I mean, you can maybe turn to hockey, but let's look at baseball. Let's look at hold on. I'm excluding the Mets. I'm excluding my Mets. But you look at baseball, you look at football, you look at basketball. It seems like the New York market isn't allowing for teams to properly rebuild. It seems like Jets fans want to reboot, or they want to, just be back in the playoffs immediately. The reasons the Jets don't have a team like the Packers or a team like the Patriots or Steelers or whatnot is because we haven't had that patience. The Jets, if you look at all those teams, at one point or another, they did have a few losing seasons where they rebuilt their entire roster and then they built off that. The Jets do have pieces to build around, but they have a lot of holes on this team. So it feels like it'd be more beneficial for the future to bench Brandon Marshall, or not bench, to get rid of Brandon Marshall or Eric Decker. I will agree, though, that I would not cut them. I think I would hang on to them if you're not going to get anything back. I've been saying cut, but in my mind I've been thinking trade. If nobody's going to give you anything, then you keep him. However, I think the Jets will more than likely or not at least get a 6th or 7th round pick for a 5th, maybe more, for one of those guys. So yeah, Alex, do you have anything else to add on that? Would you like to move on from the Marshall Decker convo?
Well, we can move on, but just one final point that Kyle Smith had also made is that I don't really see the future of this team, being a very good passing attack offense with Robbie Anderson and Jalen Marshall. I think they were a little bit of a flash in the pan early in the season for Marshall, and then his fumbling, and I just don't trust that guy when he has the football in his hands at this point. And Robbie Anderson, he does look very frail when he's out there, and he's a go route receiver. I don't see him being able to do all the things, like Kyle Smith said. So at this point, I would keep Marshall and Decker so that Quincy Enunwa and Sharon Peake could learn their roles, be their understudies, so that when we do finally, in 2018, 2019, we get more cap room, salary cap space, we'll be able to probably bring in somebody else in that wide receiver core, and those two young guys hopefully will be ready to be the number 2, number 3 in the offense.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, okay. Well, let's move on here from the wide receivers. Let's talk about some stuff that we don't normally talk about. In Week 17, I guess we were just talking about the young guys, but this is a different look at it. In Week 17, we saw a lot of young guys on offense and defense. You saw guys like Doug Middleton, Corey Lemonnier, Freddie Bishop getting reps, and, of course, the young wide receivers and whatnot. Kyle Fahey, I'll start with you. Do you think you could see any of those guys, specifically the young guys on defense, having a role next year? Specifically Corey Lemonnier, who is a guy who hadn't played all year. In Week 17 he played. He had a sack. He looked competent. Do you think he can be a factor? Freddie Bishop is probably the main guy I'm going to attack here, is because I think he's a guy that played very well when he was in the field. Do you think he can have an impact? And then, of course, Doug Middleton or anybody else, guys who just got a lot of reps. Deion Simon is in that list. There's a bunch of them, of young guys who got reps on the defense side of the ball. Do you see any of them being big contributors in 2017?
Yeah, I see possibly a couple of them being starters, if I'm going to be honest, depending how free agency and the draft shakes out. Now, obviously, that can change everything. But, right now, Justin Burris, I think, has earned the number 2 starting position. Hopefully he has a good
Whoa. Okay.
Hold on. If we're going to go the youth movement, like everybody says, we will go that, and we will either get rid of.
But you just said he earned the number 2. He's played 10 passes, Kyle?
Can I play fairly well, all of them, fairly well.
Yeah, 10 passes.
Hey, it's not easy to cover Micro Floyd, and I'm not going to make a joke out of that. But yeah, I think a couple guys have definitely earned more reps and will be a big factor. Deion Simon, like you mentioned, Steve McClendon, possibly a guy who could get shopped for cap space. Deion Simon could come in as a young guy and fill that void. Freddie Bishop is the guy I was really impressed with really most of his snaps were from the Buffalo game, I would say. I think that's a fair statement. And that Buffalo offensive line, it's not terrible, but, it's not amazing. But he was still able to get some sacks, and I do also think that was, E.J. Manuel not really knowing what to do under center, but, still some bright things there. So, yeah, I think there's a lot to look forward to, and I do think a lot of these young guys have earned reps.
Yeah, and I think that's a good point, Kyle. Alex, what's your view on these young guns on the defensive side?
I really do like what I saw out of Deion Simon. I think that, like Kyle had just mentioned, that he could nip into McClendon's role, or, possibly we might part ways from him and boost him up to play the nose tackle position. And he seems hungry. He's got fire right now, and he wants the position. So, he wants to come back, lighter and quicker next year. So we'll see how that works for him. Burris, I definitely want to see more of him next year. And Jordan Jenkins, he was banged up, for quite a bit in the season, and he showed some really good, not edge, but outside linebacker, style with the pursuit, going after the quarterback. He had a couple sacks. He was, jumping on the dog pile a lot. So I'm really looking forward to, seeing the development of Jordan Jenkins and Justin Burris moving forward.
Yeah, and, continuing on with Jordan Jenkins, towards the end of the year, we really saw him flourish. And, I believe the Jets Twitter account tweeted something out the other day. It was like, snap percentage in the first part of the year or the last part of the year, and it really showed the growth that Jordan Jenkins underwent throughout the whole year. Do you see him being a full-time player next year and being an impact player?
I really hope so, to be honest with you, because I felt like he was starting to heat up near the end of preseason, and then he got that injury that kind of set him back a couple weeks. So I don't feel when he came back on, when he was, healthy enough to perform, he was still trying to get those training wheels off, and I think we kind of saw him playing with a little bit more confidence, and, his anticipation obviously improved, when he was, pursuing after the quarterback.
Yeah, I totally agree with you there. And sticking with the linebackers, not the youngest guy. He's been in the league for, I think this is his third year upcoming. Lorenzo Molden, big expectations for him this year. Ben and I both agree that his loss of weight wasn't necessarily the best thing for him in hindsight.
He gained weight.
Or, I'm sorry, I had that backwards with Brandon Marshall. The gain weight.
We're talking about that next. Don't worry.
Yeah. Sorry, just get Todd Bowles' diet. I don't know. It always confuses me. Can never understand the labels. But it wasn't necessarily the best for him. So do you see things coming out of him, this offseason? Hopefully he can, get into a better shape for a linebacker, possibly get faster, get stronger. Hopefully we hired did we hire the new outside linebacker coach, or he went somewhere else, didn't he, Ben?
Yeah, no, he went to Seattle to be the defensive line coach.
So we're at a loss at outside linebacker coach, but hopefully the next one can come in and shape him up. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think this is definitely a make it or break it year for Lozo. we did expect big things from him. In his first season, he had 4 sacks, and he had limited snaps. I don't know if he got 4 this year, and we were hoping that he would be somebody that would be between, the 6 to 8 range, at least. And I think he struggled a lot. And, obviously he did get less reps in the middle of the season. And then, before he got injured, I really started to feel like he was, finding himself on that outside position. So hopefully he can come back healthy and he can prove himself this year. But I think if we see another down year from him, they're going to have to move on. And, I don't know if they're going to cut him next season, but, I wouldn't give him a big contract and extend him if he ends up with another dud season.
Yeah, I agree with you. And, Ben, I don't know what the exact clause is. I think it's for every rookie, but I could be wrong. They have a choice to pick up the 5th-year option. Correct me if I'm wrong there. That may just be like a first and second round thing. No? All right. Well, looking at those stats, he had 2.5 sacks this year. He did increase on his tackles by about 6, even though he had less playing time. So, development has been slow for him, but obviously just a very talented player. And, continuing on with the linebackers, because this seems to be a problem for the Jets. Deron Lee, going into his 2nd year now as a pro, gave him kind of a, I don't want to say a free pass for this year because it wasn't as good as people thought it was going to be. But, this year I think he needs to step it up. Are you in the same boat, or do you think that, right now he's just in his developmental process and he may take a couple years, but, in due time he will probably be our best linebacker?
I think he, needs a little bit of time just like everyone else. We always expect our first-round picks to come in and, set the world on fire. He was second in the, in tackles, I believe, for the team this year. And, we did see him get exposed in coverage a little bit. Maybe those are just, him getting acclimated to a different role. I know he's had some time back from college, at safety and at linebacker. And some people were saying, is he inside? Is he outside? So we played him inside this year, and we saw what we had. So it'll be an interesting project to see where he goes. But I definitely feel that, after you get that first year done, he's going to be the guy. He said he wants this team to be one of the best defenses in the league, and, he feels that, he's ready to take on the leadership role. So I'm with him. At this point, we got to be positive with what we have because there wasn't a lot of positive things that came out of this season. So, I'm backing Deron Lee until he proves otherwise.
I agree with that. Alex, good stuff as always, man. Give out your Twitter handle so our listeners can give you a follow.
All right, fellas. Thanks for having me on. My tag is at Rufio_187. Have a good one, fellas.
Hey, you too, man. We'll make sure to tweet that out. And that was Alex Rufio, who gives some nice takes. And Kyle, we touched on it briefly. The Todd Bowles diet. I think that is, we in our first 2 or 3 episodes, we had the Grind My Gears section, which was just straight out of Family Guy.
Yeah.
Kyle, and you would give, your complaint about whatever, something stupid. But
usually, yes.
Yeah, usually. I think we have the soundbite somewhere. Hold on, I'll see if we.
Oh yeah, we definitely still have that.
It's somewhere deep in the archives.
I buried it so it would never be played again. But you just dig things up, man.
You know what really grinds my gears?
Guess what? It's the stupid Todd Bowles diet. I called it when he said that Brandon Marshall is going to lose weight and Lorenzo Malden's going to gain weight, and both of them hurt each other's strength. Brandon Marshall was such a beast in 2015 because he was so big and strong that he could basically just bully the smaller cornerbacks. He could go up and just box them out. Look at the Giants touchdown to send that game into overtime. They took away that strength, and even though, Brandon Marshall still would have had a better year if Ryan Fitzpatrick had played better, I honestly believe that this contributed a little bit to his downfall because my argument was like, Todd Bowles said, well, we want it to be a little faster. It's like, Brandon Marshall's never been a speed guy. Him dropping 12 pounds isn't going to make him a speed guy. It's just going to make him less strong. He's always going to be a guy who's going to catch it, get maybe a little bit run after catch, but that's not that. He's a possession receiver. They took away his strength. It hurt, and obviously the QB play did as well. But I honestly believe that if they just kept Brandon where he was at, he would have had a better year. Then you look at Lorenzo Mauldin, who gains weight. The best part about Lorenzo Mauldin, similar to our whole argument about Robbie Anderson earlier, about all he can do is run deep, basically, this is the equivalent of just asking Robbie Anderson to gain weight and slow him down so he can't run deep anymore. You made a player who wasn't very, very well-rounded, but was very good at one thing, and you took away his strength to try to make him more well-rounded, but instead you just made him more mediocre. Lorenzo Mauldin, he gained weight.
You messed up.
Yeah, let's be honest here. Lorenzo Mauldin doesn't have a very heavy arsenal of pass rushing moves. His main one was basically just run at the offensive tackle and basically just run around them. But he was fast enough to get around the offensive tackle and then cut back in and get the quarterback. He did that on 3 of his 4 sacks his rookie year. Now he's trying to do it, but he doesn't have the speed. He's gained 10, 15 pounds. So now he's trying to bull rush or try to display some of his pass rushing moves, and it's not working. The only sacks he's getting now are just the sloppy seconds. I'm telling you, this Todd Bowles diet really screwed the Jets over for two of their most important players this year. And let's be honest, the other argument was, well, he wouldn't be a full-down player unless he gained some weight. It's like, well, that didn't help with anything. If anything, that just made him slower to catch the running backs from behind. He still got hurt. It's just the whole Todd Bowles diet. I said it when it happened that I don't like this. I had a bad reaction to it. And of course, that the New York Jets did not listen, and they messed it up. So if Brandon Marshall does return, I want him to go back to where he was at the beginning of the year. And Lorenzo Mauldin, we know he's going to be back. He's got to drop that weight again. All right, well, let's go to our next caller, and this is Hakeem on the line. Hakeem, you've been on hold for a while. Thank you for your patience, man. How's it going?
Hey, guys. How you doing? Long-time listener. Love your show. Love your work. Thanks for having me on.
Oh, I mean, that means a lot, man. Thank you for listening. That means a lot. Let's talk a little about these Jets, and it's been a slow news week, as we've said. We'll start with the offensive coordinator search, and we've been talking about that the past 3 episodes or so. We haven't narrowed it down at all. But since you're a new caller, Hakeem, who would you be interested in bringing in as our new offensive coordinator?
Of course, I would love a guy with an extensive resume, but, that's just not going to happen. So I think when it comes with coaches, you never know about them till after the season. So we can get a guy with an amazing resume, but if our players don't respond to him, then it's not going to matter. So I know we interviewed John Morton from the Saints and George Gotti from the Texans, and I know that Bowles has already said, hey, he's got his eye on his guy. So I think, in about a week and a half to 2 weeks, they'll announce it. I think Bowles has already got his guy. I think why it took so long is because Bowles is doing his due diligence, because this might be Bowles' last hire. So he's got to get this one right. If he messes this one up, he's done. So he's taking his time. He's going to find someone that plays complementary football to what he does, and he's going to, coach the football team up right, develop the young players, and just keep us moving forward. So, I mean, we'll see who it turns out to be, but I think also why it's taking a little time is because the new offensive coordinator has to, find a quarterbacks coach that he's going to bring in. So he's got to go hunt him, too, before they announce anything formally. But I just got to believe that Todd Bowles is doing his due diligence.
Yeah, and Hakeem, thanks for coming on the show. I believe this is your first time calling. I think I do remember you from Twitter a couple times interacting with us, but I think Todd Bowles has put more due diligence into this offensive coordinator position than he has, any of the game plans throughout his 2 years, if I'm going to be honest. So it better be a pretty good offensive coordinator that he's going to, pull out of a hat to say on a podcast. But, Hakeem, we've been discussing the Brandon Marshall, Eric Decker, wide receiver situation. And, I think everybody agrees that we have a lot of young talent. Where do you stand on the possible cutting or trading of either one of those players or both of those players, or do you want to keep them? I mean, where do you stand on this?
Well, we just got to keep our options open. And I don't think we have as many options as we may want to think, because no one's going to touch Eric Decker right now because he's got 2 major surgeries, and we don't even know if he's going to start the season healthy. He's probably going to be on the PUP list, so no one's going to touch him. Plus, we're not going to cut him because he has some dead money, and he does have some value for us, being a leader and a veteran. As far as Brandon Marshall goes, I know if we get rid of him, it will clear him off our books completely. But Brandon Marshall demands the number 1 corner to cover him. I much like our chances a lot better when Robbie Anderson is going up against their 4th corner, or Quincy Enunwa is going up against their 3rd corner, versus Quincy going up against their number 2. And I think if we have to keep them all on board, because we don't know what's going to happen with Devin Smith. He could end up getting hurt again. So I think you go into training camp with all of them. And let's say we have a terrible season. Then you trade Brandon Marshall off mid-season. You still get to recoup half his contract in terms of cap space. And hopefully, you get a conditional pick, whatever you can at that point. But there will be a hungry team making a push for the Super Bowl, like a GM that's on the hot seat that needs to make a move. And honestly, I still think Brandon Marshall can play at a high level. If we bring Tyrod Taylor in here, I see no reason why Brandon Marshall cannot catch 100 balls. So let's see what happens. But I love keeping my options open. And I don't want to lose good players. Jets cannot afford to lose any other good players. But
it's rare that we have them.
Yeah, it's rare, exactly. But if we do go in the full youth movement, then I understand. But you can't get rid of both. And I would actually be in favor of keeping both.
Yeah, Hakeem, that's actually the first argument that I've heard for keeping both that I actually, see as a legitimate, option. I do agree that Robbie Anderson and Quincy Enunwa are going to put up better stats going up against the 3rd and 4th. It might stunt their growth because they're not going to get that experience going up against the 1s and 2s, but I agree. If the Jets want to succeed, having a guy like Robbie Anderson who's proven he can run that deep ball going up against that team's 4th corner, I mean, he's going to put up a lot of numbers. So I actually agree with that point. And Hakeem, really quickly, because we jumped ahead. Now we're going to go back to the coaches, and we'll go forward. Just because I forgot to ask you, do you think that Bowles mentioning that he already has a good idea of who his coach is going to be, do you think that's an indication that he's probably going to hire in-house, maybe Carl Durrell, the wide receiver coach, or do you think he just knows and it's an out-of-house source? Because that quote got me, and I was like, oh, that might mean it's Durrell. He's just not announcing it yet. They're just doing their due diligence.
I mean, it could end up very well being Durrell. And, as Jet fans, we're just going to have to patiently wait and see how Durrell responds to being promoted. But I think, Bowles has been in this league so long. He's probably made so many relationships. He probably has so many coaches on speed dial. He can call up so many people. So I think he's got an out-of-house candidate, and it's going to, hopefully be a nice surprise. But I do want a young guy. I do want a guy that has a track record developing skill positions or quarterbacks. And, we can talk about offensive coordinator and all our coaches all day long, but the Jets' real issue, of course, and like everyone knows, is our quarterback. If we have a decent quarterback, I bet you we won't need to hire a coordinator every year.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's
well, do you think – yeah, for sure. I mean, the quarterback position has been such a position of need. Do you think that if Todd Bowles has another bad season, let's say a 5-11, 6-10 type year again, that he should be fired, or do you think the Jets should keep trying to build with him as their head coach?
It depends on what type of team we're giving him. If we give him a veteran-loaded team, then he's got to win, and he's probably got to make the playoffs. But if we give him a full youth rebuild, I would be in favor of keeping him for another year. I know people are going to freaking go crazy about that because I've heard so many negative things about Bowles. But just like a rookie quarterback, a rookie head coach takes a long time to learn. And I don't want Bowles to become successful somewhere else and another team would enjoy the fruits of our labor, right? So I think –
like Bill Belichick.
Exactly. And I think the NFL game, it's a game of patience and development. And that's why I love Mike McCagnon, because I think he's a true player developer. And I can't wait to see how our young players move forward. And I want to talk to you about some of the younger players as we continue our conversation, because I feel like we have some budding breakout players headed for next year.
Yeah, all right. Let's talk about it.
Yeah, I'm down.
Yeah, right on.
All right, well, let's start with a couple obvious ones, then we'll go into a little more detail of the depth chart. Guys like Robbie Anderson and Deion Simon. We'll go offense and defense. What do you see from them coming into the next year?
Oh, I love Robbie Anderson's ability to just come back to the ball and just make plays and just keep going out there and competing. He's such a young player, and that's the thing about McCagnon. He loves younger players, underclassmen. He's going to develop them. He's going to get them on the NFL nutrition, and he's going to build them up properly. So I love Robbie Anderson. Deion Simon, I mean, when we drafted him as a 7th-round pick, people were already saying, hey, we have another Snacks. Now, obviously, Snacks is such a great player. I don't even expect him to be Snacks, but if he's even 75% of Snacks, that's a great draft pick, and he'll hold the fort for us. So I love our dual combination of nose tackles with Deion Simon and McClendon. And really, our contract with Simon gives us leverage over McClendon. But I know the Jets are really high on McClendon because of the veteran leadership he brings. But I love Deion Simon, love Robbie Anderson. I love a lot of our young players, so you'll hear me saying that a lot.
Yeah, and those were some phenomenal pickups by Mike McCagnon. Deion Simon, 7th-round pick. Where'd he go, Ben? Some weird college. No offense to him, but.
It was like William and Penn. No, wait, that was David Harris. It was a smaller college. It was like. I can't even think of it. Yeah,
I couldn't even find a high-quality picture of him on draft day, so I had to go, just get his picture that he had from, the team photos that they take with, nice suit and tie. I didn't even really have him playing. It was that small of a school, and then, obviously Robbie Anderson coming out of Temple. I think Todd Bowles was definitely in that mix with his connections to Temple. Undrafted free agent, great pickup there. Now, we'll stick with the offense and defense here. What do you see guys like, let's say, Sharon Peake, another wide receiver, and then Justin Burris on defense? What do you see from them?
Yeah, I like Sharon Peake a lot. I think he brings tremendous value to our special teams, and I think that's a really underrated part of his game because he could fly down the field. And obviously he wasn't really making game-changing tackles, but I think with, refinement towards his game, he can be an outstanding special teamer for us. And as well as, play a few snaps, give Brandon Marshall a breather. But I like Peake as a prospect, and I'm so happy he's on our team because now we have him for 3 more seasons, and he's hopefully becomes a plug-in type player for us. And as far as Justin Burris, I like him a lot. I think he got limited snaps. I'm not ready to hand him the number 2 job yet. I want to bring another young player in to compete with him, but I like him a lot. I love his press man skills. I love the way he gets after it. Even if he gets beat, he's going to come back next play and get a deflection or even an interception. So I like that he has a short memory because, in football, if you get burned deep, you can have a long game the rest of the way. But Burris will continue to fight. He's gritty. He'll even go in for the nice tackle. So I like him as a prospect. I want to see him grow. He's another young player too, I think. But I like those players a lot. And by the way, I think Deion Simon went to Northwestern State.
That's what I believe.
That's exactly it.
Hakeem, before we let you go, one last topic, and Kyle, we're going to do this together. The Jets. We're going to name 9 of their free agents. Obviously, the Jets. 8. Obviously, the Jets re-signed Brian Winters, which is a terrific move. Now, we're not going to say what we think the Jets are going to do. We're going to say what we would do if we were Mike McCagnon and why. So we're just going to name them. This one should be fairly easy. Ryan Fitzpatrick. Kyle, I'll start with you. Obviously, go or keep him. But I'm going to say go. Kyle?
This is a really tough decision for me. Yeah, Ryan Fitzpatrick can go back to the cabin he came from.
Yeah, I agree. Let's send him on his way.
Yes, and then the backup, and this one's a little more mixed. Some people want this guy to return. Geno Smith, personally, if I'm the GM of the New York Jets, he's not returning. I think he has a lot of potential, but for Geno's sake, I don't think he would want to return. And I think it's best the Jets just start fresh. Kyle, what's your take?
I don't think it's the Jets' decision here. I don't think Geno Smith deserved all the crap that he's taken throughout his career. Some terrible things have been said of him, on the field, walking to the locker room, incidents there. On social media, he's had his fair share of, let's call them critics. So I think he would be stupid to stay in New York if he really wants to become what he has the talent to be. So I don't think it's in the Jets' hands. But if I were the Jets, I'd make an effort to re-sign him, just based on how terrible our quarterbacks are right now.
And
I would try to sign him. Give him a 1-year minimum deal. I obviously think he might get more money somewhere else, but this is the best place for him to succeed. So he knows the players. He's got some type of chemistry with them on the field, and he's got a good receiving core. The job's open. So I think he should want to come here, but I would sign him to a 1-year minimum deal because he's going to start on the PUP list, and I would just keep 4 or 5 quarterbacks on the roster. But I don't plan on him being the starter or the guy. But on a 1-year minimum deal, I wouldn't mind bringing him back.
All right, the next guy on the list is Kellen Davis. I would not have him return. Although the Jets' tight ends are not very good, and the blocking for the position decreased by quite a bit when Kellen Davis got hurt, I still don't think it's worth for him to come back. So I'm definitely not having him return. Kyle?
Yeah, I don't want him to return, but if we do sign him to a contract, he better buy some Rogaine with it, because that man needs it.
I'll pass on him. I gave him a shot last year. He just commits too many penalties, and he misses too many blocking assignments for being a primary blocking tight end, for my sake.
Yep.
All right, next one on the list is the GOAT, Tanner Purdom, our long snapper. I'm bringing him back. He has not had very many mistakes, if at any that I can remember, especially on field goals. When was the last time you can remember just a bad snap on a field goal? I can't. On the punts, I think they've all been good as well. So to Tanner Purdom, age does not matter at that position, and he's going to come fairly cheap. I'd bring him back.
I guess I'll go. Yeah, I would definitely bring him back. And, if we didn't, Nick Folk's wife, Julianne Folk, she would throw a fit because they're like besties for some reason. And I think we definitely need to re-sign him.
Yeah, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So let's re-sign him, but as long as he doesn't want too much money.
Yeah, I agree. Next player on this list is Bruce Carter, a guy the Jets brought in last offseason to be that third or fourth inside linebacker. He didn't have as big of a role as we would have thought he would, considering Aaron Henderson being gone for a big part of the season. But guys, Bruce Carter, I personally, if he's willing to come back on the right deal, I would bring him back. But if not, he's a veteran. It's time to play some young guys. But then you look at, we don't know if Aaron Henderson is going to be back. We don't know if David Harris is going to be back. So it's like who you have behind Darren Lee. Maybe then I bring back Bruce Carter. So for me, I'll say yes to bringing back Bruce Carter because I don't think he'll command top dollar.
I think he's a good depth player. I've seen him play some decent special teams. I don't think the linebacker core was used right at any point this year, especially when we see Sheldon Richardson in it. So I would bring him back.
Yeah, same with me. I would definitely bring him back. I think he's a team-first type player. He'll play special teams, middle linebacker, whatever you need. And I think his coverage skills are pretty decent as well. So I would love to bring him back.
Yeah, on the last three, which should be a little easier because they're younger guys. Next guy is Ben Ajalana. I am bringing him back. He's another guy that has experience in the system. He flashed when he played right tackle, so he can compete with Brandon Shell to be that right tackle. He'll be cheap. He'll be young. So I'd bring him back. Kyle?
Yeah, I'd bring him back primarily because he's more than likely going to be our starting left tackle next year.
I would not go that far. He was not very good at left tackle, and I think the Jets would probably address that position with their second overall pick or in free agency.
Nobody would come in and start for him. and not in the second
honestly,
round.
Honestly, Ben Ajalana set that bar pretty low. Hakeem, what do you think?
Yeah, no, I definitely bring Ben Ajalana back. He's a swing tackle. Obviously, I want him there for depth purposes, and I want to find another left tackle, but he can fill into any spot in a pinch in case of an injury. And I actually know Ben personally, so I went to high school with him, and he's a phenomenal guy. And next week, if I call in, I'll share some tidbits about that.
All right, I'm looking forward to that. And last two guys, we'll do them at once, just because we got to keep rolling here. Outside linebackers Corey Lemonnier and Josh Martin. I would keep, or at least bring them both back to training camp. There's no reason not to. Again, they're going to be cheap outside linebackers. You try them out, see how they look in the preseason. And I think that's a pretty vanilla answer, but I think that's what the Jets should do at this point. Kyle, what's your take?
Yeah, I agree with you. I think really for depth players like that, you just bring them back to training camp because those are guys who could definitely get beat by like a third or fourth round pick if, we feel they have more upside in the long run. So I'd bring them back on the veteran minimum, and Corey Lemonnier, I don't know if he's eligible for the veteran minimum. How many years has he been playing? I don't know.
No, I think like 2 maybe.
Yeah.
No, he might have been a rookie. He might have been a rookie. I'm not sure. But no, never mind. It was 2 or 3. 2 or 3.
Okay. So I don't even think he qualifies to be considered as a veteran. So I guess we would just bring him at the minimum we could possibly get them both, and hopefully they do a good job and earn their spot.
And last one, Hakeem, Josh Martin, and Corey Lemonnier.
Yeah, bring on Corey in for training camp. I think that's a good idea. He shows some speed off the edge. But Josh Martin, you definitely got to bring him back. He's our special teams ace. And Bill Belichick doesn't usually praise players from other teams, but he praised Josh Martin. And I think the last Jet player he praised was like Danny Woodhead. So I'm not letting Josh Martin get away and go to the Patriots to ruin our, the next couple of years. I really think Josh Martin's a good player, and he adds some depth on that edge position. I don't want him, on the defensive front, but special teams, I think he's a must-keep guy.
Yeah, wait, maybe Bill Belichick's playing mind games with us and telling us players are good just for them to be bad, and then you never know. And you never know with Belichick. They're always cheating. Hakeem, go ahead and give out your Twitter if you have one for our listeners to go give you a follow, and we will make sure to tweet that out.
Yeah. Thanks for having me on, guys. My Twitter is Hakeem Amir. So follow me, tweet at me about Jet stuff. And the one young player that I wanted to mention to you guys that no one's talking about that I think is going to be really good next year is defensive end Lawrence Thomas. And he injured him. Yeah. He went on the IR early on, but watch that Cincinnati game. Watch that Buffalo Bills game. He actually pressures the quarterback really well. He's another undrafted free agent. So that is actually the guy I'm most excited about. But, look into him, and hopefully he breaks out for us this year. But thanks for having me on, guys. Really appreciate it.
Hey, we love having you on. Yeah, I was saying the same thing to Kyle, I believe, last week or something, that Lawrence Thomas is a guy I'm really looking forward to seeing again, because that Cincinnati game, he dominated on special teams with that big hit. He was constantly getting after the quarterback, and honestly, in that one game, he probably played better than Mo or Sheldon played in any game all year. But Hakeem, thank you so much for calling in, and it means a lot that you have listened to us for a while. But anyways, enjoy your night, man, and look forward to hearing from you soon.
All right, thanks again, fellas. Take care.
Thanks for being on. All right, Kyle, we got 3 more calls on the line, so we're just gonna keep moving ahead, and then we should be done for the night talk. So don't worry. The person who's been on hold the longest is Ryan, so we're gonna get on to him first. Ryan, how's it going, man?
Good. How are you guys?
We're good. Ryan, I'm getting used to these weekly calls. I'm liking it. We just have the continuity now. We don't interrupt each other. But you were on hold for a while, so we appreciate that. Ryan, let's talk some Jets football here. We were just talking about the young players who might have an impact and step up next year. Do you have a guy that's flying under the radar that nobody's really talking about? Lawrence Thomas was an excellent example that you think will have an impact next year.
Well, I definitely loved the Lawrence Thomas example. I thought he really did well in weeks 1 and 2, against the Bengals especially, made some nice plays. But I'll probably go Deion Simon. I know people are expecting him to, make the jump, but his last couple games were very impressive, and I think, next year he should be the starting nose tackle for us.
Yeah, for sure. Sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely a possibility. But, continuing with the young guys, I don't know how you've been how long you've been on the phone. Closer to 25 minutes, so I'm sure you heard a little bit. We were talking about guys like Robbie Anderson and Jerome Peak in the wide receiving corps. What's your take on that? Are you in favor of, maybe letting go of the older guys like Marshall and Decker to see the young guys, get some more reps, or do you want to keep guys around and, just work on the young guys behind the scenes?
Well, personally, I want to keep Marshall and Decker. I don't know if it's because, I'm selfish and I love Marshall, but the only reason why I'd be dumping Marshall is if seriously, he's like a locker room problem. That'll be my only reason. I think he still can be productive, still be over 1,000 yards and, a couple touchdowns. I think that whatever quarterback you bring in here, that he's going to want a Brandon Marshall type of receiver. Even though I love our young receivers like Robbie and Quincy and Peak, as of right now, I don't see either of them, any of those three, being a number one receiver, not for next year at least. Can they develop into one? I'm not really sure, but I don't think we should take the risk just yet. I think that all those three players are talented and they're going to grow, but I'm just not sure if they're ready to take on, number one corners and number two corners. I want to have them be the number three, number four. I think that they're better suited for that at this moment, and I think especially having a guy like Marshall, he's definitely going to open the field for them, and that's my main point because obviously they're still so young. They have a lot of room to grow. But I don't know if it would hurt, having them go again, especially Quincy Nunwell, because I don't even know if he'll ever develop into a number one. That's not a knock on him. I still think he's going to be very good. He's obviously he's a mismatch and everything. He's like a hybrid type of player. But I just think, especially for Quincy, that he fits better when you have a guy like Marshall there.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. Ben, your take on that? Do you
No, I'm here. I'm just listening. Whether Quincy Nunwell, so I'm going through Twitter. I was helping out David responding to different listeners. Is the question of whether Quincy Nunwell can be a number one receiver or not?
Yeah,
that was my main point.
Yeah, okay.
That was the point there.
Okay, well, yeah, I actually agree with that. That's what I said earlier. And when I compared him to Decker, I don't mean he's a replica of Eric Decker. I mean that I think his skills are probably more similar to Decker than Marshall. Meaning, I think Quincy Nunwell is a guy who's going to dominate in his career in the slot, going over the middle, making the tough catches, taking the big hits, and running after the catch. He's not going to be a guy on the outside that I think is going to run the deep ball very often, although he can do it. There are just some routes that I don't think he's quite polished in. We haven't seen him run a great slant route yet. So I think he's a guy over the middle, drags, ins, whatever. He's not a very polished route runner, but in the slot, and given his natural ability, that shouldn't hurt him too much. So Quincy Nunwell, I don't know if he can be a number one quite yet, because given the point I made earlier is, Jets fans love Quincy Nunwell, and he's definitely a guy we can build around. But let's look at his catches per game. He was getting 2, 3, 4, sometimes 1 catches a game. And yes, that one play might be a 30-yard catch for a touchdown. And so he makes the highlight reel and everybody talks about how good he is. But for the other 58 minutes, he's disappeared. So the Jets, so for Quincy Nunwell, this offseason, he needs to work on his route running. He needs to become more of a factor, every single down.
Yeah, that's a fair point, Ryan. Next question for you. Another young guy brought up by our last caller, Hakeem, Lawrence Thomas. Where do you see his role being next year?
Well, I think he's definitely going to contribute on special teams. Against Cincinnati, he smacked. I forgot who was returning it for them, but I was actually at the game and I heard that pop from my seat. So that'll be nice to actually get hopefully improve special teams. I don't know how you can get much worse, but the Jets seem to find a way every year. And I think he'll get some decent rotation on the defensive line. He really made an impact his first 2 weeks, and hopefully he'll grow from it. I know he got hurt and everything, but he seems like he's going to be a decent rotational guy. And you brought it up earlier that his one or two games, he might have played better than Miles Wilkerson and Sheldon this whole entire year. But realistically, I think he'll be a pretty good rotational guy.
Yeah, I agree. Ben, your take?
No, I you guys caught me again. I was responding to tweets because there's certain people tweeting at us and saying stuff, and I have to defend some of my takes and stuff. Last time it happened, I'm gonna put the phone down. What one more time? What was the question? I believe it was rotational or Sheldon Richardson maybe.
No, not even close. It was Lawrence Thomas's role in the Jets defense
kind of
next year.
Okay. This actually is something that I'd like to talk about. I think Lawrence Thomas can be a good player on special teams for sure, like he was in Week 1, and I think he's a guy who can definitely a rotational guy who can come in. Ryan, before we move on, I want to ask you a little bit about the offensive coordinator stuff. I know we've talked about it, and I know we've talked about hiring Karl Dorrell, but you seem to be a pretty smart guy. Do you think when Bowles says that he already knows basically that he has a good idea of who he's going to go with, who he's going to hire? Do you think that's signaling that the Jets are already know they're going to hire in-house? Probably Karl Dorrell would be the number one candidate, or do you think that could be Matt Nagy from KC? Now, obviously, nobody knows what he means exactly, but Ryan, how did you interpret that quote from Todd Bowles? Because I interpreted it as the reason we haven't interviewed too many outside candidates, because that's the only time it really becomes news is when it's an outside candidate, unless there's a leak from inside. The Jets are just doing their due diligence on a few guys, but they probably want to hire in-house. Is that what you took away from it, or did you see something entirely different?
I can definitely see them hiring somebody in-house, but realistically what I took away from that was the guy from Houston who was just fired. What was his name, Godson or something?
Yeah, Godson.
I was reading earlier, sorry to cut you off, I was reading earlier on Twitter that Ian Rappaport put sometime earlier today that the Jets have done extensive research on him. So I don't know if that implies anything, but I was more like thinking about him. That wouldn't really be my choice. I don't blame him completely. If we do hire him, it's not his fault that Brock Osweiler just stinks. But I think that actually bringing him in, maybe because he's coming off that Bill O'Brien tree, that maybe that helps down the line, Hackenberg. But I don't know how I don't know how long he'll be here, because if Todd Bowles is fired next year, then Hackenberg's getting a third offensive coordinator in 3 years, which is not a good sign or start for a young quarterback's career. But the guy I really want to hire would be the Saints wide receivers coach. I forgot his name, but the reason why is because he's worked with Drew Brees, Sean Payton. I'm not going to give him the credit for having Drew Brees as quarterback, but I think he's done some nice work with the young receivers down there. He made Willie Snead an undrafted guy, got him to 1,000 yards. He developed Michael Thomas very nicely out of Ohio State, and the trio of Brandon Cooks, Michael Thomas, and Willie Snead's pretty impressive. So I think he deserves a shot here. He's worked 2 years as an offensive coordinator in USC, I believe. So I think that give a young guy like that a chance.
Yes, I also think that he could, my whole view from the beginning is that the Jets should try to hire some, young up-and-coming positional coach, and that is maybe the way the Jets will go. And Ryan, last question to you, for you before we move on, is what is your ideal draft scenario? Is there a guy you're eyeing and that hopes, he falls? In 2014 when the Jets had the 6th overall pick, people are talking about the worst case scenario and the best case scenario. And often the worst case scenario ended up, with Leonard Williams falling into our lap. It sounds ridiculous to say now, but, people would be like, okay, well, both QBs would obviously get taken. Then you're looking at Amari Cooper was going to get taken, and then probably Vic Beasley and Dante Fowler. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And that would leave you to decide between Kevin White and Leonard Williams. Whatnot. Do you have a best case scenario though, and then maybe a worst case scenario? Even though we're early in the process, you probably don't have too many names that you like. But is there a certain position you're hoping that falls, or whatnot? Just what would be your ideal draft day?
Well, the only guy I'm hoping that drops, which, if he dropped, I would find really surprised if he got out of the top 2 or 3, would Myles Garrett. But, I think he's going number 1 overall or 2, so I don't see him dropping, but that would probably be the best case scenario for us. The worst case scenario, I'm not really too familiar with the draft, but I'd probably go with, maybe taking a running back at 6. I know it sounds crazy, but I think that, Fournette or Cook, they could be good players. They probably will be, but I just don't see – I just feel like you can get a good running back later in the draft and you don't have to take one at 6.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, sorry to cut you off. Yeah, I agree that there are so many good running backs and deep into the class. But Leonard Fournette will be tempting. Now listen, Ryan, we have one more call we got to get on, and we only have 15 more minutes, so we're gonna have to cut you a little short. Ryan, go ahead and give out your Twitter. You are one of our favorite callers. You might be our favorite caller because you're very consistent, and you bring some fire takes. Pretty agreeable. So, Ryan, go ahead and give out your information.
Well, thank you, Ben. I appreciate that. And thank you guys for having me on. You guys can follow me on Twitter at NY_JetsNation98. Have a good night, guys. Hey,
you too, man.
Thanks for being on.
All right, we're going to go ahead and go to our next caller, and this is Rumi. We know she's about to bring some optimism and positivity to this pretty dark and depressing Jets 2017 team. Rumi, how's it going?
Good. How are you guys doing tonight? Thanks for having me on.
Well, thank you for coming. Yeah, it has been a while. Thank you for coming on. I've answered this question every single time to a caller. It's a lot of slow news. Not much is happening. We might take a break for a few weeks until something else happens. But right now, we're just talking about this offensive coordinator spot. Until that gets filled, after that gets filled, there's not going to be much of news. But the Jets are really drawing this out. Rumi, let's talk about that offensive coordinator spot because that is the one pressing need. Is there one person you're interested in? I know Ryan was interested in bringing in the Saints wide receivers coach. I'm also maybe on that bandwagon. Obviously, I like Matt Nagy, the co-offensive coordinator for Kansas City. Maybe we go Carl Durrell. But is there one guy that you think that the Jets could bring in potentially to be their next offensive coordinator?
I like the guy from Texans, George Godsey, because
yes.
Well, first of all, my brother is he's a diehard Texans fan, and he has experience, he was a quarterback coach, and he was also like a tight end coach for the Patriots. So I think he would actually help Hackenberg and Petty.
Well, yeah, and he worked with Hackenberg at PSU. He was a big part of the recruiting process there.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
And he was with Hackenberg during his PSU days, his good PSU days, and then followed Bill O'Brien into the NFL. Excuse me. So Rumi, I also agree with you that maybe he could be a solid offensive coordinator. So now you got your offensive coordinator. We don't know who the quarterback is going to be.
Also, sorry, I want to bring one more point. Also, Mac, he used to work for the Texans, so I could see him bringing him too because he's familiar with that staff.
Yeah, that's a good connection as well. Yeah, I mean, if he was a part of that original Bill O'Brien and Godsey hire, so I think McCagnon could, give his take on and his opinion on Godsey. So now you got your offensive coordinator. Who's going to be your QB next year? If you had to put money on it, who would you say is the most likely scenario for 1st and 10? Whoever we play week 1, the schedule doesn't come out till April. Who do you think it's most likely going to be?
Okay, I don't want the Jets picking a quarterback in the first round because I think we need some a veteran guy like Tyrod Taylor from the Bills. I think he would be a good fit for us, especially with the young wide receivers that we have, Robbie Anderson and Sharon Peake. He can throw those long balls at him and everything. So I think he's a perfect fit. We need a veteran quarterback, not another like a project again like Hackenberg and Petty. So we need somebody with experience, and I'm hoping he's available too.
Yeah, I think the Jets probably will most likely start Bryce Petty week 1, but I could also see Christian Hackenberg. If the Jets have an opportunity to get Tyrod Taylor, I think they should 100% do it because he is a guy you can build around. He's fairly young. I think he's only a few months older than Bryce Petty. So he's a guy you can build around. It's not like you bring him in and it's like, well, the Jets don't need to win now. It's like, no, I mean, he's a young quarterback that you can bring in through free agency and see how he is while you're trying to rebuild. All right, so now you've got let's say your quarterback is Tyrod Taylor.
Okay.
Your offensive coordinator is Godsey. So a pretty good off season for the Jets. You said you didn't want to be asked about the Marshall Decker thing, so we're just going to say
no.
we kept all of them.
About the draft.
So we've got our 4 receivers. All right,
Okay.
we're getting to the draft very soon. We've got all our receivers. You look at our offensive line. Okay, so I guess we're going to assume that Brandon Shell is now going to start at right tackle. Obviously,
No.
Brian went. Oh no.
No. Oh no. I think he can. I take it back. Sorry. I was thinking about somebody else.
Well, yeah. I think that. I think it was. I probably shouldn't just say we're going to assume because it'll be a competition. He looked the best out of all of our young offensive linemen. So for all intents and purposes, to save time, we're going to say okay, he's going to be a right tackle. Brian Winters will obviously be a right guard. We're going to say in this scenario we're going to cut Nick Mangold. So we got Wesley Johnson starting at center, or Nick Mangold retires, whatever. And James Carpenter's a left guard. So now we have a hole at left tackle. Are you addressing that through free agency or the draft?
The free agency.
And do you have any specific target in mind or no?
No, because I heard there's not many good left tackles, right, in the draft.
Yeah.
So there has to be somebody in the free agency. I don't know. I haven't done my research yet and see who's available out there. But like you said, I want some guy who has experience because our offensive line is horrible. You've seen it. We need somebody who knows how to play and tackle and everything from day one.
Yeah, no, I agree. I'm not a big proponent of drafting, tackles in the first round because it generally takes offensive linemen a while to get acclimated to the NFL. I'm more in favor of drafting or picking up a proven guy. So for all intents and purposes, we brought in a veteran left tackle, maybe the backup guy from the Redskins. His name is escaping me, who backed up Trent Williams with them when Trent Williams got hurt. Yeah, I believe that's him. Look at Kyle showing off. And then, okay, so our offense looks pretty solid except the running back position. Now we can talk about the draft, Rumi. What are we doing about this running back position? Are you cutting Matt Forte? Are you keeping Bilal Powell full time?
I like Powell. I like Fournette. I really do, and Dalvin Cook. But I don't think the Jets are going to pick him at 6. I highly doubt it. They're going to pick a defensive player, most likely a cornerback or a safety. I'm hoping. I don't know about pass rusher. They're going to do that too. But I'm hoping more like a cornerback because if Revis moves to safety, then we only have, Justin Burris and Gerald Roberts at
and
the
Buster Skrine.
Oh, Buster Skrine, yes. I mean, those are the only 3 available. So I want somebody fresh from the draft, somebody who's good like that guy from Alabama. What's his name? Marlon Humphrey or something like that?
Marlon Humphrey, yeah.
Yeah, I like him or
Tease Tabor.
Another cornerback. I mean, Malik Hooker, you guys are talking about safety. I don't know if they're going to get him.
Would you be interested in Tease Tabor, the guy from Florida, Kyle's number 1 corner?
Oh, yeah, I heard him talk about him.
Ben, don't say it like Ben, don't say it like nobody else has him as their number 1. He's
mine. Dude,
he's consensus number 1.
He's up there with Marlon Humphrey for me. I haven't made my decision first, but he's arguably my number 1. Sorry, I didn't mean it like that. I was trying to cite you because if I felt like if I just said Tease Tabor, you would have been like, whoa, that's my guy. Okay, so in this scenario,
from Texans to free agency, AJ Boyle.
AJ, you know what? Everybody's hyping him, and I think he's a great player as well. No. Hold on. Well, Kyle, that's a different take. I think he's very good, but I don't think he's going to get away from the Texans. He's too good of a player. All right, well, in general Rumi's world, so the Jets have, let's say they've drafted Marlon Humphrey. But we're going to get to the defense in a second. So for running back, though, so you're going to attack that in the second, third, fourth. What round would you probably try to attack that?
I would say third or fourth round because it's a good running back class.
Okay, and then are we
tight end too? I really like O.J. Howard from Alabama, but I know they're not going to pick him at 6.
Well, but do you think there's a chance he could fall to your second round pick?
No.
No, someone's gonna grab him. He's just too good. And he's big, and he's 6'6" or 6'4" or something. He's huge.
And so with that second round pick, what position are you targeting? That offensive line or the front 7 or?
I would say I don't know, like a running back or maybe running back second or third round, or like you said, I don't know about quarterback too. If we don't get Tyrod Taylor, then what are we going to do, right? We're kind of
well, I mean, the Jets are probably going to bring in a veteran.
I'm assuming.
So It might be. I could be Romo, but I hope it's not Romo. It'll probably be Glennon or Hoyer or something like that. It sounds bad. Well, I don't think they'll start. I think they bring him in as a backup. I think they could be the day one starter, but I think it'll be probably Petty or Hackenberg. All right, but in this situation,
if we don't get some veteran guy, then we have to pick somebody in the draft. I'm assuming.
Yes. Well, yeah, maybe. I don't know. I think the Jets will probably end up getting a veteran guy because there's tons of them out there. And whether it's a good guy or not is to be determined. Okay, so for the second round pick, let's say the Jets draft offensive line. They just get another, guard or something, so some insurance, and the third round pick they draft a running back, let's say Elijah Wood or something like that. All right, so the offense is looking pretty solid, at least on paper, under Godsey. They got Tyrod Taylor, which is probably the biggest reach so far because everything else is pretty reasonable. But we're going to say Tyrod Taylor is our starter for this scenario. Then on the defense side of the ball. All right, the defensive line has a lot of talent, but there's some talent has to go. Muhammad Wilkerson or Sheldon Richardson, who are you getting rid of? How are you getting rid of them? What's going to happen with the defensive end situation? Because you're obviously keeping Leo. So which of the Sheldon Richardson versus Muhammad Wilkerson are you going to try to get rid of?
Well, when they signed, they gave Wilkerson that big contract, I was actually surprised the Jets were going to do that. I didn't think they were going to sign him. And Sheldon Richardson, he has all these locker room issues and everything. I don't care which one, who will go. Well, one of them has to go, or both of them. I don't know.
All right, well, that's some scorching hot takes right there. Well, we'll say Muhammad Wilkerson stays because of his contract. The Jets trade Sheldon for a later round pick, let's say a fifth or a sixth or
fifth, yes.
Yeah, a fifth to the Cowboys or whatever. Then at the defensive tackle spot, last thing we have to do in the defensive line is are you keeping or cutting Steve McClendon in favor of Deion Simon, who's the guy who played well in his limited time?
That's a tough one because Deion Simon played really well this year. I like him. He seems like an up-and-coming player. I think he's going to do good things this coming year, so I don't know. I like Deion Simon, actually.
So would you cut Steve McClendon then?
If I had to choose, yes. But I would want to keep both.
All right. Well, okay. We'll say we keep both, but we're going to start Deion Simon, and then Steve McClendon comes in with the two defensive tackle looks.
Okay.
All right. So then on the linebacker position, and we're almost done rounding out your team. Let's go across. You have two outside linebackers. We're going to assume one is probably going to be Jordan Jenkins. The other one. Let's say for this choice, I mean, it could be a free agent. Obviously, I'd like Melvin Ingram or something like that. To make it simple on you, out of the guys on the roster, who would you most prefer to start at the other outside linebacker position? You could choose from Lorenzo Malden. You could choose Freddie Bishop, Josh Martin, Corey Lemonnier if you prefer. Just based off what you've seen, who would you pick?
Well, I know you guys are talking about the Todd Bowles diet. It didn't help Lorenzo Malden. I agree. He did gain too much weight. I want to give him another shot. He seems like he really wants to try really hard to improve out there. And I like Freddie Bishop, too. I would keep him.
All right, so we're going to say Lorenzo starting? A mix of Lorenzo and Freddie Bishop, we'll say. Yeah. A little bit of a cop-out. So then the middle linebacker position, are we so Darren Lee's obviously going to start. Are you bringing back David Harris, or are you cutting him?
I'm cutting him.
Okay, so you're cutting David Harris, and so who?
He made a couple tackles this year.
Yeah, he's getting a little old. He's been old since he's been drafted.
Bring in the youth men. So.
He's been yeah. So then you could look at the Jets bringing in possibly maybe bring back Aaron Henderson or Bruce Carter to back up Darren Lee. But
I like Bruce Carter.
Yeah, I think Bruce Carter can be a solid player. So then let's go to the secondary, the last part of your team here. Who you built a pretty solid team, a team that is built kind of a half measure. You have some players in there.
We don't have a tight end, though. We don't have a tight end.
Well, our tight end is Austin Sperry-Jenkins. Yeah, I guess right now it's Austin Sperry-Jenkins. So our corners right now is you drafted Marlon Humphrey. You have you have one of either Darryl Roberts or Justin Burris starting at number 2, and then Buster Skrine's going to start in the slot, presumably. So do you think that that is a doable corner bunch, or would you like to bring in somebody else? And do you have a guy in mind, or are you just saying that the Jets probably should bring in somebody else?
Like I said, if A.J. Boyle is available, I like him. But I like that scenario because...
Or Trumaine Johnson. That's the other guy I completely forgot
Johnson,
about because the Denard Wilson connection.
No, I like that because Buster Screen, he missed tackles here and there too, but it was tough for him because he was playing nickel a lot and inside. So I don't know. I want to give him another shot. He didn't do too bad. And I don't know about the Revis situation too, if he's going to get cut or move to safety.
No, yeah. So let's say now you're Coach Bulls. Are you moving Darrelle Revis to free safety, or are you going to cut him, save the money, don't think it's worth the experiment? Or keep him at corner.
No, I'm only going to take him if he's going to take a pay cut at safety.
Right. So in this situation, we'll say Darrelle Revis takes a pay cut. The Jets are able to bring in some mid-level corner, so not Trumaine Johnson or A.J. Boye, but somebody in there. So now you built, and Calvin Pryor will start at strong safety. So you built a pretty solid team. Kyle, is this the type of team you expect to trot on the field in 2017?
I don't expect a good one, so yes.
What did you say? I can't hear. He didn't like my picks.
And well, he said he doesn't. He said he didn't expect a good one. So yes. Well, hey, I actually thought Rumi made some good picks, and some of them I forced the hand because we don't have time to sit through all the free agents that could possibly be picked. But I think that's a pretty solid team, and for listeners at home, the whole point of this entire thing was that's the type of team you're going to see in weeks or in 2017. Excuse me. The only reach was the Tyrod Taylor part. That's the only part. The only thing I would say to make it more realistic would be, I think it would probably be a veteran. So you're looking at a guy who's had experience with Godsey,
Brian Hoyer.
And then I think with Godsey, since he likes Christian Hackenberg and then Bryce Petty's the other young guy, I think that they would just have a 3-man competition. So whoever can win that. So for Jets fans, you got to hope it's Christian Hackenberg because that means he's good.
No.
If he can't.
That's not what that means. If he beats out Brian Hoyer, that means he's.
Oh well, sorry. I mean that means he's at least competent.
Developing.
Yes, because you wouldn't expect, because Christian Hackenberg would go into training camp as the number 3 quarterback, so he'd have to at least be somewhat impressing to be like, okay, well we're going to rush this a little bit and play him at number 1. Anyways, Rumi, I thought that was a little fun to go through your team at least in January. We'll probably do it again right before the draft with our free agents filled. But Rumi, I'm sorry, but that's all the time we had.
I'm sorry.
Hey, I mean, freaking Kyle Smith from AFC East Bros taking up all our time with his Malik Hooker takes. No, I'm just messing. But Rumi, no, I'm kidding. I love Kyle. Rumi, give out your information. You're probably the most optimistic Jets fan I know, and I'm a very optimistic Jets fan. So go ahead and get out your info.
Well, my Twitter handle is RKLoveJets, and I want to point out something, too. I hope the Jets will actually pick a tight end in this draft because, when we drafted Dustin Keller in 2008, Sanchez, he actually threw to that guy, 55 times or something in 2010.
Dustin Keller's the man.
And then we went to the AFC Championship, so it gives another option to the offense. I'm really getting sick and tired of not getting a good tight end. Do
you not think Austin Seferian-Jenkins is the guy?
Well, he didn't get that many reps or opportunities, but, I want somebody else, right? You can't just have one guy. If he gets injured, then who else is going to replace him?
That's a good point.
That's my only.
I thought Brandon Bostic is a solid number 2 tight end for blocking purposes.
Isn't he a free agent?
I believe so. So maybe the Jets will re-sign him. Well, that's for another episode. And who knows? O.J. Howard isn't the only good tight end in this draft. I think a guy who should – the Jets, you have to remember, have the 6th pick in the 2nd round, or it might be the 5th pick or whatever it is. They have a very high 2nd-round pick.
That's true.
I know. I'm pretty sure it's 5th because they, flip-flop or something. It's a weird one.
It's weird.
I have to go look at it. Anyways, but who knows? Maybe a solid tight end can fall to them, like Jay Samaro out of Texas Tech, a very solid receiving tight end.
What?
Yeah, there we go.
What?
I just wanted to see if Kyle was still listening.
I'm like, what are you talking about, Jason?
That was the last tight end we took. You guys are a little slow. I was throwing out that Jay Samaro because he was the last tight end we drafted, and he didn't pan out so well. I'm a little scared of drafting tight ends.
No. The offensive coordinator didn't pan out so well.
How's Jay Samaro doing in Tennessee, Kyle?
He did fairly well.
He had 1 touchdown.
That's better than what he did with us.
He had 5 fumbles in the preseason. All right, it's not time for this conversation.
Did he make the team?
No, no, he did not. Rumi, thank you so much. We'll make sure to tweet out all your information.
Well, thank you so much for taking your time, too. I know you guys it's getting late, so appreciate it.
No, on the West Coast, it's awesome here. It's like 7 o'clock. It's Kyle you got to worry about.
Kyle, exactly.
Honestly.
He just turned 10 3 weeks ago, so.
Yeah, my bedtime is 8 o'clock.
Anyways, Rumi, thank you for calling in.
Well, thank you. You guys have a good night.
You too. And that was Rumi. We'll make sure to tweet out her Twitter. All right, now it's time of the show where we bring on the man, the myth, the legend, Gangrene David.
The legend 27?
He's our producer. He does a fantastic job. David, you can unmute yourself. There you are. David, how's it going, man?
How you guys doing tonight? You guys did awesome tonight. I'm doing good.
Hey, David, you make this show. I'm telling you, all the live tweets. I'm telling you, when you live tweet, we get a bunch of callers, and we had callers, drop because I think some of them get a little impatient. But David, thank you so much for all you do. Yeah, some shots fired.
Shots fired there. David, you're the best producer in the game. I don't care what anybody else.
Well, hey.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
He's a young rookie. He hasn't proven himself yet. Kevin is the Tom Brady of the league of producers right now. And David, David's maybe no. David's not Aaron Rodgers. Maybe he's like Andrew Luck. He looks good, but he has some work to do. All right, David. Unfortunately, we do not have time to talk too much football because it's getting pretty late and past the normal end of the show. But let's give out the trivia question. We have a new format because I kept getting them before Kyle even had a chance. We didn't even know if Kyle could even get it right.
Wait.
So, well, actually, Kyle, we're going to text. David's going to give out the answers. Nobody's going to say anything. We're going to text it privately to David. David will then read out the answer. If Kyle and I give the same person, then it goes to whoever was first. So Kyle, get out your phone and go to David. And David, when you are ready, give out your trivia question, and we will also post this on Twitter. So for those who don't listen live, they can go and try to get it, see if they can get it right. But
camera on. I want to see your hands.
All right, hold on. Kyle, they all have.
You ready for my trivia question of the night?
Yeah. 1 second. All right. Yeah.
Okay. So my trivia question of the night is: on December 1st, 2014, at the Monday Night Football game against the Miami Dolphins, there was one legend who was recently inducted into the Ring of Honor. He was our recent legend, if I'm wrong. What was the name of this player?
All right, I said my answer. I'm not sure if I'm right this time.
I don't think I'm right, though.
Yeah, David.
What's the right answer?
No, well, actually, give out what we said, and then we'll say.
Okay, so the answers, Kyle, you said Victor Green. Ben, you said Wayne Corbett. Only one of you is correct.
No, that's Ben. Yeah.
You are correct. Ben is correct.
Yes. I'm 3-0, man. We got to start keeping track. I'm 3-0 against Kyle.
It was Wayne Corbett. Congratulations, Ben. You got the next trivia question right.
Sweet. We look forward to that next week. All right,
that's
guys.
That's a no for me.
David, you can stay unmuted. We're gonna end the show like this. All right, guys. Thank you so much for listening to another episode of the Jettake. I believe this was episode 37, if I'm not mistaken. We've had some other episodes that didn't get uploaded, and
it's fishy business.
Some tentative. We probably recorded like 42 episodes and only uploaded 37. But we're on the straight and narrow right now. We've tried to upload as consistently as we possibly can. So. Thank you for all your love and support, all the listens we've been getting, even when we don't upload on time. But this episode will be out tonight. And as I said, 37 episodes. It's been awesome. Kyle, you're awesome. And David, thank you for all you do. You can follow us at the Jettake on Twitter. That's the best way to get in contact with us. If you tweet at us, we're not some Twitter account that doesn't think they're good enough to respond to fans. We will respond to you. We'll give our thoughts. But you can follow us there. We're very close to, I believe, I don't want to get this wrong. Let's see how many followers we're at on Twitter. We are very close to 700 followers there. So hopefully we can get to 700 within the week. Anyway, and you can also find us on iTunes, SoundCloud, Google Play, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, pretty much any other podcatcher you can think of. YouTube, we have an Instagram, that's the Jet Take. Pretty much just go to any social media or podcasting website and type in the Jet Take, and you should find us. Anyways, thank you so much for another episode of the Jet Take. It's been a fun one, and we'll see. And we have a lot of stuff brewing. We've been talking to a few people that we might bring on the show and stuff. So as the news has dried down, we've ramped up our discussions with certain people. So in the next month or so, we should have a few good people coming on the show, and it should be a lot of fun. Some big stuff coming. And again, if the news doesn't, pick up, we might take a week off or 2 weeks off just to give the news some time to marinate, because it's been only 5 days since the last episode. So, anyways, we will talk to you guys next Wednesday. As always, our number is 515-739-1285, and enter in the PIN 261860 with the pound, and you can call in every Wednesday at 8 o'clock Eastern Time. We're going to leave you guys with the best chant in the National Football League by the best fans in the National Football League. Let's hear it for the Jets. Talk to you guys next Wednesday.